So, um, yeah. Thank you for joining us as we played all those games. Thank you once again to everybody on staff for doing their thing. And now it is time. This is it, the Shacknews Hall of Fame. Asif, David, I'm gonna throw it to you guys here to kind of explain the Hall of Fame and the concept and what we're doing here.
Yeah, sure. I'll let Asa speak to when he started thinking of this. I know that in April 2022, I have been back at Shacknews about 6 years, and almost since I came back, I wanted to do a Hall of Fame because Hall of Fames, I think, are really important to the industry. It's just a way to sort of enshrine, lionize, and immortalize creators and the games that have not only because we can talk about them really academically, but just games touch our lives is the simplest and most accurate way to put it. And so Shacknews has been around for 25 years. That's a big deal because not a lot of outlets survive even half that long. And so I feel like, and also, if I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like a Hall of Fame is just kind of the natural next step for an outlet that's been around as long as we have.
Yeah. When I feel like we had talked about this concept before, years ago, and it just kind of came and went. We had our 20th anniversary in 2016, which I think was the year that you came back.
Yep.
And we had kind of talked about doing something like that, and instead we focused on just doing an E3 booth and things like that.
We changed the slogan too.
Yeah, we dropped "It Gets You Chicks" and we became, the Do It for Shacknews outlet. Right. When we announced the Do It for Shacknews slogan change, it was a hint at the future, which was Cortex, the future of user-generated content on the platform, and now with Shack Pets. Yes, we were thinking about Cortex and Shack Pets all the way back. It just takes time. We're not the biggest company on Earth. But yeah, we thought 25 years was an important milestone. It's a quarter of a century, which on the internet is a lifetime.
Yeah.
Or an eternity. And to David's point, a lot of other outlets did not make it this long. So we wanted to honor the history of the video games industry, and not just games. Like Game of the Year, we talk about video games. Sure, the Shacknews Awards, we've introduced all sorts of categories to honor other people, other achievements and things like that. But a problem that I saw with like a lot of how we cover games here is that we hadn't really done right by our history. Either Quake, the FPS genre in general, even early 8-bit games, companies that have come and gone, games that have come and gone. We toe the line of enthusiast press here. And this is an opportunity for us to be full-on enthusiasts and unrepentant in that sense. So there are some games that will not surprise you that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame today because this is our first year. And we decided that, like Canton, Ohio, we have the Pro Football Hall of Fame here. To be eligible for induction, you have to be out of the league for 5 years. So for us, we're like, what if we made 25 years that cutoff? You have to be in the industry or had to have been a part of the industry at least 25 years ago. So that opened the door for a lot of things. And throughout the year, Shacknews has honored a lot of games that have celebrated their 25th anniversary with us. Hell, the N64 console itself celebrated its 25th anniversary this year. Other outlets, IGN.com, which started as N64.com, celebrated their 25th anniversary this year. So we looked at this as an opportunity to celebrate how far this industry has come and how we've been there the whole time alongside it. So that was really why I thought this was the year to do it. But yeah, I do think that this will be a fun thing because I don't know anyone who's a video game historian out there in the chat or whatever, but 1996 1997 and 1998 were quite possibly some of the best years ever in the history of video gaming. And it's going to be really fun. You may be scratching your head this year when you see certain games don't make this list, but it's because they weren't out yet in that 25-year
Yeah, our cutoff is really December 31st, 1996. If you were released after that in 1997, you're eligible in the class of 2022.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is something that is not going to be a one-off thing. We're going to be doing this every year, kind of in conjunction with the Shacknews Awards. Because this is our first year, it is a massive, massive list of awesome things, people, video games, studios, companies, software that may be a little bit tangential to the video game industry, but definitely had an influence. No, 1994 was a great year. Our point is that there are games that are being inducted today and this week that this is their first year of eligibility. And that's always, in Canton, David, that's always a big deal. When you make it into the Hall of Fame in your first year of eligibility, it means you're truly one of the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that you will notice today.
Is Bubsy going to make it in 1PR Studios? There's only one way to find out, and that's to tune in right now. Let's see. So this list was made by can we talk about the Council of the Olds?
Yes,
sure, we can talk about
that. Let's talk about the Council of the Old and the bloodletting ceremony that was a part of joining. Let's get into all of that.
Yeah. So we put on some robes. We did some chants. I don't know why everyone always slits the palm of their hand for blood. That's a painful place. There's a lot of nerves there. There are better places that you can cut yourself for blood. But we did it anyway. And we summoned, pixelated spirits from yesteryear. Basically, it's me, you, David, you, Asif, Bill Lavoie, Leslie Mejia, and Greg Burke. Mm-hmm. Right? That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
We didn't want to exclude anyone, but we thought, if we wanted everyone on the council to, for example, when someone brings up a game, we want most of the people to be able to speak to it. And, some of our editors, through no fault of their own, were born much later and really haven't played a lot of these games. But,
I think as we progress through these inductions, I think that other people who may be younger on staff are going to be able to contribute more. But if you're someone who never played a game on an Apple II, I didn't even want to talk to you about this. It was a waste of time.
I think if
you didn't know what a Commodore 64 was, there's no point in having you in this discussion. This isn't like looking down on their opinions and things. It's literally that they were not alive for some of these things.
Yeah.
Which is actually, this is part of it, right? As we are enthusiast press, and most of us, we all care about the history of video games. And so I think that the Hall of Fame, for some of our younger editors, until we start to spot some salt in their pepper and they receive a mysterious invitation to join the Council of the Olds in the mail one day, before that, they'll get to read this Hall of Fame. I think they'll get as much enjoyment out of it as anyone else. They can kind of learn about the foundation of a lot of the industry. Because we really, to speak to what Asa mentioned earlier, we inducted some various platforms, including operating systems, because even though those weren't games, you played games on them. And more than that, they were foundational to games. Without some of these, some of the greatest games of all time were written for these operating systems. And that's sort of the criteria we were looking for. It wasn't as simple as, this game's at least 25 years old, let's throw it on the list. We got into some often heated debates about the merit of certain games, certain developers, certain companies. And I also, Blake, I don't know how you feel about this, but I like our categories too. You'll see some categories that you would expect, like companies, games, but there are also some categories where we go a little off the wall to make you think about, I didn't think about this, but it does make sense to have it inducted into a video game Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went out there with some of this list, really trying to look for innovative titles, maybe things that were under the radar, but games that stuck out. in over time.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff, and not just games. It's like we thought about like certain times and points in the development of technology that has affected games. We thought about like the people that made that technology. We thought about things that were part of like certain eras of the cultural zeitgeist.
Hardware products that stuck out.
Yeah, things like
that. Like fence post moments in technology. Breakthroughs in gameplay design, breakthroughs in engine design. There's so much when you look at the video game medium. There's so many different individuals and different entities that played a role in shaping the history. And this is the beginning of something. We intentionally left some things off just to piss off people, I think. But also just because
it was rough, man. It was rough. We really had to really like decide upon the merits of like why things were going in and the reasons they were going in and like what was enough and what wasn't. Like we already have like a hefty chunk of things we want to nominate for this coming year.
See, Denny in chat I don't know if I've ever seen an Apple II in person. And that's why we didn't tap you for the Council of the Old. And it's almost a compliment if you're not in the Council of the Old, because we're very old and we're tired and we don't have time for that.
Every gathering of the Council of the Old begins with us talking about like our back pain and our arthritis, and why would you want to be a part of that?
Like complaining about indigestion and
it's not even how this happened.
Like I have, oh my god, had to take like Tums almost every time we met up, or some ibuprofen, or both.
Yeah. That's how you know you're qualified for the Council of the Old, is when you're taking a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Just
you know what?
I
forgot to take my magnesium today, guys.
There you go.
I was like, hey guys, can you turn your mics down? My ears are blasting.
Yeah, that's right.
Every one of us is just like sore and tired and achy and popping. Did you get your medicine at 4 p.m.? Hang on, let me take my pills and then we can meet.
Yeah.
So, do you guys want to get this started?
Yeah, let's do. I have to say, I don't know that what we're gonna reveal, what we're not, but I have to say, I'm gonna dance around it to save it. But just as an example of some of the more out of left field nominations, one of my favorites from Blake, and again, I'm not going to mention it, but he mentioned a certain comic publisher, and at first I was like, "What, really?" But when he pointed out that this publisher put out stories connected to game franchises, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that does make sense. That's the sort of thing we're looking for that a lot of other Hall of Fames might not think to include.
Yeah. I want to start with individuals, because I think there's two people that should be the first inducted into this Hall of Fame. Our founders, Steve Gibson and Martin Goldstein.
Mm-hmm.
These two guys started out as just some Quake players who wanted a place to share information and keep in contact with their friends. And Steve Gibson started Scary's Quakeholio, which then became Scary's Sugar Shack, which then became Shacknews, after, I believe, a more popular Sugar Shack that had illicit material gained popularity. I think it might have also had to do with Steve's sponsors or something at the time. But yeah, Shacknews was born out of the need to have a more adult-sounding name. And not that kind of adult.
No, mature.
Well,
not the kind of mature.
Sophisticated.
Yeah.
Sophisticated. And yeah, Shacknews was born. Martin did a lot of the back-end design early on. Even helped us when we acquired Shacknews in late 2013, early 2014. He still knew a little bit about the database. Steve famously dropped one of the original servers, wiping out the database. So if you go to shacknews.com these days, there isn't really much of a history before the year 2000, I think, that's captured in the commenting system. And yeah, Martin still pops up in the chatty. If you're subscribed to our YouTube channels, GamerHub TV and Shacknews, we have an interview with Martin Goldstein that's going live right now, that we're going to have a shell for and everything. He spoke with us earlier this year about the 25th anniversary. And one thing he mentioned in that interview, and even just in my conversations with him, is that it's kind of weird. Steve and him have now been at Gearbox Software and Gearbox Publishing, in Steve's case, longer than they were at Shacknews. So it speaks to just how old our website is, how far it's come. That our two founders are not just huge successes, but they're thriving in the video game industry. And Steve's rise up the chain of command at Gearbox has been incredibly inspiring for a lot of us here at Shacknews. Steve's mom still posts on our forum, Sugar Mom.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's amazing. It's cool to have like a website mom. And yeah, the Gibsons are still a huge part of the website. And yeah, Martin always throws his support behind us when we're doing crazy things. He was even featured in last year's Shacknews Direct where we announced Cortex. And I know that he finds the Carnage report to be a hoot. The idea of gamifying the website was something that they really enjoyed. But yeah, we had to get those two out, obviously. I guess I can just keep going down this list.
Yeah.
Next up, it would be dumb of a website that was based on Quake, founded on Quake News, to not induct the entire id Software team, the original team.
Yeah. So these guys, John Carmack, Adrian Carmack, who it's still important to note is not related to John.
Yeah, no relation.
John Romero and Tom Hall, they met at Soft Disk, and they met a few other friends who joined them at id. But those four were the co-founders. They started, they were making games at Soft Disk for a monthly magazine, and then they kind of left to do their own thing with Apogee publishing their first couple of games, those being Commander Keen, all those episodes, and then all 6 episodes of Wolfenstein 3D. And sometimes I forget Wolfenstein 3D was 6 episodes because the first is still the most iconic because of shareware.
Yeah.
Like more people played the shareware than would ever play the full game.
Yeah, I mentioned that
free nature of shareware.
I mentioned that in another inductee's blurb in an article that's going to be coming out tomorrow. That shareware had a lot to do with the early successes of some of these games, because who could argue with the price of free?
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you
shareware
try?
Shareware was a little different than a demo or a beta that we see in current days. Like a lot of the time, you got like a contained gaming experience in the shareware, but it usually was designed to leave you wanting more. And then you could unlock them by in-app purchases, actually.
Well, yeah, and even before that, I remember to get Doom, I got the shareware from a friend. To get Doom, after you leave the shareware, you'd have that splash screen that says, "Here's how to get the full game." I called id Software's 800 number.
Yep.
I ordered after the phone, had to get my mom's credit card, because that's how you bought games back then. And then there was no Amazon, so this game didn't show up after 2 days. It was like, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I was just every day like, is Doom here? Is Doom here? But that's how you get games back then. The idea of just like hoping someone would send you a check was pretty strange, or would be pretty strange to a lot of people today. But Commander Keen, I think in its first month, made id Software alone $10,000 in royalties, and then Wolfenstein 3D's first month earned them over $200,000 in royalties, and that's the point at which they split off from Apogee and said, "Hey, no hard feelings, but we're going to do our own thing because we know how to do this shareware model now." And then Doom just took off like a rocket. So that's the sort of spirit we wanted to honor by inducting the id Software co-founders.
Yeah, these guys were, I would say, accidental entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
I don't think that many of the people in leadership roles at id Software were really prepared to run a company. And
No.
you've dove deep into the stories behind the launch of Quake in our Rocket Jump long read, which obviously dives into topics of other FPS that came out around the same time or even led up to it.
Oh, I mean, this was a case of the inmates running the asylum, right?
Mhm.
And I say that with the utmost affection, but it really was. Like, there were business managers there, but all they were really there to do was to make sure that John Carmack's code made them some money. He was going to do whatever he wanted, and that's not to say he was a tyrant, but that was the whole point. Like, I want to make this, and everyone else is like, okay, and then just jump on board that.
Mm-hmm. And he would thumb his nose at conventional business practices, making a lot of the source code for their games open. And birthing this amazing mod community. And getting ideas from their community, looking at how people were creating multiplayer mods for Doom 1 or, maps or whatever, and like incorporating those ideas into Doom 2 or learning from what people did in Doom 2 and bringing that to Quake. We haven't talked much about Quake here, but these guys created the game that created this website. And Quake changed video gaming forever. It introduced maybe the best online gameplay ever, but at least at that moment, it was a come to Jesus moment. It was also a game that pushed hardware rigs. It was like this fence post moment, and we'll mention that a few times in the history of gaming where, oh crap, I need a new PC. I felt that way when Doom came out. I felt that way even more when Quake came out.
Oh man,
when
I did
Doom
too.
Came out, I was like, man, I need a sound card.
I got a Sound Blaster 16, and we'll come back to that later. For Wolfenstein 3D, that was the first PC game I ever played with something other than the standard PC speaker. And I was like, a lot of people, and I believe I wrote about this in a certain other induction, but a lot of people praise Wolfenstein 3D's sound and graphics. To me, what stands out the most, and those deserve the praise, but the sound in that game, to hear the guards shouting at you. I mean, I remember the first time I got a chain gun, I about blew out my speakers. My mom came running in like, what is that? I'm like, sorry. Like, that was the first time I'd ever heard gunfire and what passed for surround sound back then. It was wild.
That was a huge moment. And id Software was responsible for a lot of those things. Even id Software today, still doing amazing things. Doom 2016.
They brought the Doom clone. Remember, before there was FPS, everything was a Doom clone. And they brought the Doom clone back in 2016 with Doom. And, you mentioned Quake. It's interesting how Quake was... So Tim Willits told me something interesting when I interviewed him for Rocket Jump. He said that a lot of his peers at id would probably name Doom as the most influential game that id ever made, but he thought it was Quake for a lot of the reasons you said. And here's another tie between Quake and Shacknews. Not only did we start as a Quake fan site, but Quake, it didn't invent esports. You had things like the Nintendo World Championships, things on a kind of one-off or small scale. But Quake popularized esports, and a few years ago we started Shacknews Electronic Sports. Just another thing born from Quake and our history with Quake.
The grand final of the Shacknews World Championship held at E3 2018, right next to Nintendo and Sega's booth, was Quake.
Right.
And one of the finalists, controller player, had no idea how he got into this mess. But he went up against the legend that is Mega Moose 64. And Quake, we've gone on to do the Great Quakeholio tournaments at QuakeCon, where we would buy tacos for everyone, have a nice spread of like a Mexican feast alongside our tournament. And we continue to honor that game every year. Quake is one of my favorite esports by far, because excellent play of that game is really a sight to behold. This year, when I got my ass handed me by Milton, where it felt like I was being hunted, watching that guy play Quake is something else. Being on the other side of it, where he's hunting you,
I can imagine.
Terrifying. But that guy, Quake is like battle chess in a lot of ways. And there's map control, there's weapon control, there's armor control. A lot of these things that have become staples in other FPS games were born out of the beautiful design in that game and the arenas that were built either by the community or by id themselves. It just felt like those games, Wolf, Doom 2, Quake, they were all building to something. And that thing was Quake 3, which we'll get to in future years. But Quake at the time, and I think it's important that we keep hammering this into people, because these younglings, they don't get it. They weren't there. These games really took over the video game zeitgeist at the times that they launched. Doom had congressional hearings about it, you know. But Quake literally pushed people to get better rigs.
Not just once, but twice. Because if you remember, Quake comes out in the summer of '96, and you're like, okay, 486 isn't going to cut it anymore. Because this was another first. Id Software gave me a lot of firsts. It was the first time that I needed a Pentium processor. And then again, a couple of years later, when Carmack released GL Quake for free, that upgrade, I was like, well, what is a 3D accelerator card? Today we call them GPUs. But I was like, okay, I need a 3D accelerator card because this game looks gorgeous. So I had to upgrade it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. And another nominee or another inductee that is in a different category, I was writing the blurb about it, and I was like, it's funny how when graphics processors became a thing, they didn't do the whole job. They still depended on discrete graphics processing, usually on the motherboard or processor, and they provided 3D acceleration. 3D acceleration through OpenGL, all these other things, were powered by these Voodoo cards, and they were actually cheaper than some of those previous GPU concepts. And that was a huge moment for gaming too, because once 3D acceleration became more affordable, it drove development. So this is Quake was one of those things where it pushed not just software, not just services, but also hardware forward in a lot of ways. And it's undeniable the influence that id Software's had in the industry. So
absolutely,
that was a no-brainer. Most of these have been no-brainers.
We have more than a few no-brainers, I would say, this year.
I'm actually going to go over these next 5 kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Satoru Iwata, Hiroshi Yamauchi, Shigeru Miyamoto, Koji Kondo, and Masahiro Sakurai. These are legends of Nintendo developers and executives. Yamauchi-san running the company from 1949 till 2002, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
Which is a crazy amount of time to be a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
And if you think about Nintendo's path during that time, they went from a card company to a love hotel company to a taxi company to an electronics company and then a home video game console company. They developed Donkey Kong somewhere in there. Yamauchi deserves credit for allowing the company to experiment and giving them that spirit of a toy company. Nintendo always hits me as a toy company more than a tech company, because they put something together, they know it's not going to bankrupt the company, they throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, they get back to work. And I think that culture was brought in by Yamauchi-san, and it was continued on in 2002 when Iwata took over as president of Nintendo. I think he was the 4th president of Nintendo, and the only non-Yamauchi who had run the company at that point.
Passing the torch to him was a big deal because he wasn't in the family, right? And so it was a big deal.
Yeah, and we've seen with Kimishima-san, who took over in that transitional year, and now Furukawa running the company. There's a culture at Nintendo that was put in place by these legends that we are inducting today. And I don't know. Everyone knows who Miyamoto is.
Yeah, I almost would go so far as to say that maybe some of us wouldn't be here doing this job if not for Shigeru Miyamoto. He's been that like a captain of industry and a captain of influence. Like even John Romero has said, like Super Mario Brothers, Shigeru Miyamoto had such an influence on Doom and Quake. We wanted to run and jump. We wanted that sort of smooth, intuitive, tight gameplay. You hit Miyamoto's influence is, it's hyperbole, but almost literally everywhere.
Yeah, and just a crazy amount of just industry shaking, like changing intellectual properties born out of that man.
He embodies that spirit of toys that you mentioned earlier, right? Like he wanted to make toys. That was his life dream.
Yeah.
And then he kind of stumbled into this job. I think his dad or Yamauchi owed his dad a favor, and so his dad was like, well, I should give my son an interview. And so Miyamoto was like, I want to make toys, but I guess I'll go check out this Nintendo company.
Yeah, wasn't he an industrial designer by education?
Yes, and then he ended up drawing Donkey Kong, and then they were like, "Oh, keep going with this," and then kind of the rest is history. But like, Nintendo games to me are so special because they all channel Miyamoto's love of play. All of their game systems in each game, it's just about play, about experimentation. And that even though Miyamoto he still oversees a lot of game development at Nintendo, but he's kind of said, "Hey, I'm passing the torch." But you can tell that everyone who took that torch has been influenced by him and is carrying that spirit of play on in what they're making.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's weird because he has taken a step back, but he's still there. He's overseeing these. He's kind of a curator of their new intellectual property strategies, either on mobile with Super Mario Run and the recent launch of Pikmin Bloom, and also the motion pictures. What they're doing with Illumination Studios. He is working with them to make sure they do right by his babies, right? And then on top of that, his hands are all over Super Nintendo World, those amusement parks. So it's I feel like a lot that division over at Nintendo that makes the Mario games, that makes the 3D Mario games, they get it. There is a best practices over there, and they understand it. And he has a good leader should be able to remove themselves from the situation and have the team still function as he would intend. And I think Miyamoto has set up a few studios within Nintendo that are like that right now. And it's really something to see, because we get games like Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and he's not directly involved with them, but there are elements of his influence in them, and it's very noticeable. I know we kind of glossed over Iwata a little bit, but very similar in that
He's a
sense.
hero of yours.
One of my I value 3 CEOs more than anyone else in history. Satoru Iwata, Steve Jobs, and Dave Thomas, founder of Wendy's. I just think all 3 of them were not afraid to get their hands dirty, get involved. Satoru Iwata was very unique, though. An engineer by trade who became a businessman, who became a manager, but really, deep down, still just wanted to code. And helped work on the source code for Smash Brothers, the original one. Actually approved the idea of Super Smash Brothers, which was really weird at the time. That they would have their beloved IP kick the crap out of each other. Putting a rubber stamp on that game, coming in at the last second of Pokemon Yellow development and rewriting the entire battle code because it wasn't good enough. I love executives like that. Executives that take ownership in their product, don't shift blame to others. A moment that I will never forget is in that heart of the Wii U 3DS era, when the company was really on the rocks. 3 straight years of losing money. Hadn't done that in 30 years, right? He cut his salary in half so he wouldn't have to fire anyone.
That blew my mind because no one in America would ever even consider.
Name an American video game executive that would do that. I'll wait. But it's that culture, that level of care for people who work for you that I find incredibly inspiring. And his willingness to take risks. I keep coming back to this with Nintendo, but they are like they do take risks. The Wii was a huge risk, but they never bet the company. They know that we're betting this amount. If we fail, we're going to get back to the drawing board. And that's what we saw with Wii U. There are elements of genius to everything that's in the Wii U, but it was not packaged properly. The Switch is a realization of a lot of those things, and it was born out of Satoru Iwata's work. The Switch is a combination of the Wii U and the Wii. There are motion controls on the Switch. It is also this realization that Nintendo makes awesome handheld devices. Better than almost everyone else in the industry. And the Switch is this realization that instead of working on two platforms simultaneously, let's work on one.
Yeah.
Instead of
But they
dividing
still
our
have,
studios.
but they still have that two pillar system, right? Instead of now the two pillars being console and handheld, the two pillars are the console handheld hybrid, and then these other experiments such as mobile gaming, Super Nintendo World. So that, again, as you said earlier, they never bet the company. They take very calculated risks that allow them to still experiment, because even though their hardware, traditionally their hardware historically has never been the most powerful, but it's about repurposing old hardware in forms that people haven't really seen or tried before. The Game Boy was ancient even when it came out, but it had a long battery life. It had a huge library, and so I had a Game Gear. I played around with a friend's Atari Lynx, which both great handhelds, but my Game Boy outlasted all of them, literally and figuratively.
It's undeniable the effect the effect that Nintendo has had on the industry. How many companies have chased after them throughout time? How many companies have tried to take them off their pedestal in the handheld game? You could argue that really only Apple has truly succeeded on that front, and not even, because touchscreen games are so drastically different than what a Nintendo handheld is. That being said, Nintendo was first to market with touchscreens with the DS. And that's an example of them experimenting and hitting it big. One of the best-selling game devices of all time is the Nintendo DS family of products. And that happened under Iwata. That happened with Miyamoto in tow. And those two working together was really a sight to behold. I think you had Miyamoto, who was trying to influence hardware from a software perspective. It felt like every Nintendo controller was built for the next Mario game, right? And even in the case of the Wii U, that thing was built for Mario Maker.
It absolutely was.
If you ever watch that interview with Miyamoto, I think he has one of his other developers there with him. They show all these sheets of paper that were grids that they used to draw Mario levels on. It's literally the Mario Maker screen.
Yeah.
And they talk about how they were like, hey, what if we turn this into a game? It's that what if we did blank attitude at Nintendo that I love. It doesn't always hit, and they're clearly stubborn. They're slow to move in some areas, like online. They're still very protective of their IP. But yeah, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt sometimes, and I think that it's the history, it's the track record that they have that gives fans reasons to, N64 expansion pack isn't necessarily good at all. But boy, those N64 games are good, and they still work on my N64.
Yeah, I think, most of the reason people are so upset, besides the fact that they're paying money for it, is that those are classics that people want to play again with the convenience of the Switch. I have to step away for a moment to grab some groceries that were just delivered. But I wonder, actually, Blake, if you want to speak to one of the nominees, Asif included, Koji Kondo. Nintendo's music is so special, and I just wonder, Blake and Asif are both musicians. I wonder if you could just tell the viewers a little bit about what it is that makes Koji Kondo's music so special and iconic.
Well, for starters, it's serious composition, right? I'm not saying that every soundtrack to every game at the time was basic, but Pac-Man has a little jingle.
They had constraints. The processors on the devices were constraints that they had to work within.
Well, and that was true on the 8-bit. But what they did was tricky is the way that they would layer stuff is they would have parts of the drum beat in the melody track where the melody wasn't, and things like that. They used different tones that weren't necessarily percussive or melodic in order to fill gaps, so they could fill out the entire tracker.
And you hear that on SNES, you hear that in Super Mario World. You hear that in even 8-bit games. But I know that you're a musician that considers yourself part of the chiptune community, not the bad part, the good part.
Some part of it.
I'm just saying, cartoon violence makes chiptune music.
Yeah, we have chiptune music. We worked with Game Boy trackers and stuff like that. But,
chiptunes, that scene doesn't exist without Koji Kondo.
Oh man, I think it doesn't exist without a lot of composers of that era too. But
Yes.
Koji Kondo, I mean, like let's face it, everyone knows the Mario theme song, everyone knows the Zelda theme song. They're two of the most iconic pieces of music ever to be put into video games, and they've just been expanded upon. I mean, look at where Super Mario World goes musically, you know, and yeah, it just the evolution of it all.
Yeah, I mentioned it. You know, I had to write about Super Mario World for this project. Spoilers: Super Mario World's getting inducted today, guys. Obviously.
Yeah.
I wrote about it though. Super Mario World was truly a showpiece product for the SNES. The SNES had a brand new audio processor in it, and you understand this, Blake. Like
General
the audio,
MIDI.
yeah,
General MIDI.
The introduction of General MIDI into a video game console was a huge deal. And Super Mario World was that first proof of concept. Like, look what we can do with audio now.
Yeah.
And then it set us off on what I consider the best generation for video game music ever. Which was the SNES.
Yeah.
You know, you had the Final Fantasy games on SNES. You know, countless amazing soundtracks were born out of Super Mario World. When it launched with the SNES. And yeah, Koji Kondo was at the center of that, pushing things forward and innovating. And I always say this about Nintendo, but it's true now. It was more true then. They do more with less. And getting back to what you're talking about with the sequencing and how they were doing experimental things with percussion instruments inside of, inside of like melody tracks.
Yeah.
No one had really thought to do that stuff yet. So that's truly innovation.
Yeah.
And
they were on the cutting edge of that stuff, like with composing on home consoles, man.
It was great to see a game like Mario Paint. That
gave you access to that stuff.
Actually literally added a music sequencer to the game. It was something else.
People are still making music with Mario Paint today, which is super cool.
There's a tracker you can get online so you can compose more than like a bar or two at a time.
Nice.
Yeah, there is there's like a port for PC that allows you to really use it as a composer now.
Yeah.
But that game, it birthed all sorts of stuff. But it gave birth to one of my favorite series, the Mario Maker franchise. And Mario Maker, the original Mario Maker for Wii U, tips its cap to its predecessor Mario Paint. The fly swatting mini game is in Mario Maker, and that's a direct nod to that game.
Yeah.
These guys are amazing legends of the industry.
But like Koji Kondo, man, like I just want to like let's compare and contrast just Mario Brothers and Zelda for a minute. Like the soundtrack to Mario fits so perfectly. The overworld, you have the theme song, you go into the underground world, and it's got like a cavernous vibe to it, you know, there's space to it. When you go to the castles, it gets very dramatic, and that's even more so when you get to Super Mario World, right? Like you get into a castle, you get those vamps on the organ where it's just like dun dun, and like stuff like swells, and then it comes down like really gently, that and it gets back to
I love
creepy.
That part.
Like those orchestral swells are fantastic, and like you see the beginnings of that way back in Super Mario Brothers. That's something that's so funny. The underwater music is like a waltz. Like you put a freaking waltz in a video game, man. Like, come on. Like this dude is a composer through and through, and it fits so perfectly. It's got it's got that you're floating in the ocean, and it feels like that, you know. And I feel like a lot of that was inspired by like classical film scores, you know, black and white cinema stuff where it was just really all about the music. Like you can hear that influence in Koji Kondo's work. And then you go to Zelda, and it's adventure. Like, right away, the theme song to Zelda gets you freaking pumped. You're going to get that sword. You're going to get out there. You're going to start, like, blasting Octoroks. Like, you're off on a quest, and this music is...
There's the fairy fountain, right? Yeah. You know what it sounds like in your head. I just say fairy fountain. You know what it sounds like, you know?
Yeah.
They do an amazing job of, like, environments invoking feelings through music. A lot. In the Zelda franchise and in the Mario franchise. No, it's...
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of good composers on this list today, and they're all made music that I love. but Hoji Kondo is the fucking GOAT. Period.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. And deserves to be enshrined in Canton, Ohio for eternity.
Absolutely.
He does.
Yeah.
We're going to freeze him in carbonite. Keep him on display.
Seriously, though, like, they still keep cranking out the hits over at Nintendo.
And, you know, they never rest on their laurels either. Like, you can hear, he does remix his classic tunes, but he's always kind of reconfiguring them in new ways and doing completely new stuff. Like, he has that curiosity and that creativity that Miyamoto and a lot of the other...
I'll be right back. Just getting some water.
Sure. And, you know, he has that spirit of creativity and imagination, the same as Miyamoto does, but for music. And I think that's why there's just this perfect storm. There was this perfect storm of creators and innovators at Nintendo during the era when they really had to establish themselves in the home market.
You know, most recently, he has his hands all over the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe soundtrack.
Oh, it's so good. The jazz motifs.
So ridiculously good.
Yeah.
And yes, help, I'm trapped in Canton, Ohio, says Romsteady. We're not actually taking the humans and locking them in Canton.
Oh, we're not? Oh. No, of course not. No.
We're going what's going on here? But people may be curious like how we're going to enshrine we're working on an article. It's a long read. It's going to hit the website tomorrow. We're going to save that HTML file and put it on a thumb drive and then put it in my briefcase, leave it on my desk in the office at Canton.
And that is the Hall of Fame.
That's literally what the enshrinement's going to be. This is kind of our way to announce things. This is like our equivalent of David Baker showing up at your hotel room.
That's right.
I don't know if you know who David Baker is. He's this giant man who worked for the Hall of Fame in Canton. The other one. I should say the other Hall of Fame in Canton.
The other Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah. A lesser one.
But, tomorrow, Friday the 17th, you'll be able to go to the Hall of Fame long read and read about all this stuff. But that's just a hologram. The real Hall of Fame will be on that thumb drive in your briefcase. Yes.
Yep. And yeah, occasionally, every year, I'll open up the envelope, get the thumb drive out, and update it with the next class. So, we have another 2022 class that will be inducted next year. And it's going to be some bangers. 97 was a really good year. 96 was an amazing year, too.
And that's another thing. We left some nominees on the cutting room floor, but they're not off limits. We could revisit them next year, the year after that.
And that happens in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, too. You have Clay Matthews of the Cleveland Browns is still not inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
It takes time. Some guys are in their 80s when they get inducted. Some guys are dead when they get inducted, And that's the case here too. But there's a lot more to go through, so I think we should continue.
Absolutely.
We kind of glossed over Sakurai. He had an amazing year.
Just this year alone.
The completion of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. A promise that he made to Iwata-san, like when he passed away, was that he would finish Ultimate. And boy, did he finish Ultimate.
Yes.
What a tremendous wrap up to that. What really feels like the end of his involvement in that franchise. But an amazing way to go out. And definitely deserving an induction into our Hall of Fame. Let's talk Atari real quick. This could have been the largest company on Earth. Steve Jobs was like, hey, do you want to buy our Apple computer product? It's only going to cost you $50,000. You own 30% of the company. And they're like, you smell bad. Get out of my office.
And they turned down the opportunity to distribute the NES in America.
Yeah.
That's two big strikes right there.
Despite that, we're still going to induct Nolan Bushnell and who's the other co-founder?
Ted Dabney.
Yep. Into the Hall of Fame because Atari is undeniably tied to video game history with Pong, with Breakout, with the Atari 2600. They were the poster children of that first video game bubble in the early 80s and the arcade bubble. So they found themselves in the crosshairs both places.
Yeah, even before Dabney and Bushnell formed Atari, they met at an electronics company where those two built the first commercial video game, which was Computer Space. an adaptation of the game Space War, which a bunch of graduate students had made at MIT years earlier. So Bushnell and Dabney took their experience making computer space, formed Atari, and then they assigned Al Alcorn, who I believe was their first hire. He was an engineer. And this was back before you program games. Bushnell told Alcorn, make a table tennis game. And this was just a test. He was like, we might not use it, but just like throw something together as a prototype. And Alcorn went all out. And that game became Pong. So Bushnell really had two back-to-back hits, Computer Space and Pong, both in the bedrock of the video game industry.
And when you talked about development of video games back then, it was electrical engineering. Mm-hmm. It was literally making a
board. You made a circuit board.
Yeah, it's about making a board.
Yeah, like if you look at old arcade games and stuff like that, there's these giant boards in them that have like everything. Like they run the sounds, they send the signal out to the CRT, and it's all hardwired together.
Yeah, and to your point, Romsteady, we're looking at their influence in the video game industry. So, O.J. Simpson has a bust in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. So there may be some people on this list that people don't like necessarily, or maybe rub people the wrong way. But this is it's undeniable that Atari and these individuals had a huge influence on video gaming.
To that point, I wrote the induction blurb for Bushnell and Dabney, and Dabney left because he and Bushnell had several fallings out. They, Bushnell notoriously was difficult to work with, but they partnered again later. Dabney helped him get Chuck E. Cheese off the ground. He wasn't a co-founder, but he did help Bushnell get that company up and running. So if they can move past things, we can too. Obviously, there'll probably be nominees down the line. We'll have to have serious discussions about whether they should be inducted, but these two, you can't mention Atari, can't mention arcade games, you can't mention home console games without talking about Nolan Bushnell and Dabney.
Warts and all.
Yep, warts and all.
Yep.
So yeah, Atari, man, first video game console I ever played.
It was mine too. My aunt got me. This is one of those classic mistakes adults used to make. They probably still do, but back then, my parents would always say, "Oh, are you playing Nintendo?" Like everything that was a game was just Nintendo. And my Aunt Tammy bought me an Atari 2600 Junior because she's like, "Oh, this is a Nintendo." I'm like, "It's not, but it's still pretty cool." Because I had Adventured, I had Olympic Games, I had Donkey Kong Jr., and so that was cool. I was saving up for my own NES at the time, but that was kind of eye-opening to me too, because as a kid I had only played the NES up to that point, and so here was this other video game system with games that were fun to play too. So definitely Atari deserves to be enshrined.
Yep. So we're gonna keep moving on here.
Yeah,
it looks like David Wise is next on our list.
Another great conductor. He was one of the lead conductors at Rare. He gave us bangers in Donkey Kong Country, in GoldenEye. So many classic Rare games. Blake's just like champing at the bit.
Donkey Kong Country, man. Donkey Kong Country. Holy shit! Like top 5 game soundtracks ever, man. That is a swinging, banging, jolly good time. Like it just head to toe, man. There is not a bad track on there at all. Like, yeah, I just always get that.
One, I still think Donkey Kong Country 1. What's your input on this, Blake? I still think Donkey Kong Country 1's underwater theme might be the greatest underwater theme of all time. It's just so serene. It just relaxes me every time I hear it.
It's very Jacques Cousteau. It's like the Donkey Kong is at home in the ocean. It is, as you can see, him and the swordfish have formed an alliance against the many trepidations.
But beyond DKC, why I think David Wise definitely deserves to be on this list, and it's a testament to Rare engineers in general. Banjo-Kazooie and how they changed like environmental audio design. music that would kick in when you walk into a certain area and would fade away and transition to another song. It wasn't just stop, fade out. No, they actually had transitions that were based on where you were in that open world. It was never seen before.
Yeah.
And it became a staple. Like, that's another one of those moments. A lot of these people, you can point to moments in their career where, like, they changed the game. And David Wise and Rare did that with audio design on the N64.
It's something that wasn't uncommon. It's not uncommon in cinema. Like, movies have themes, and the themes run throughout, and everybody has their own, like John Williams in Star Wars. Darth Vader has a theme, Luke Skywalker has a theme, but they all kind of they're all like the same key and like transition into each other. So yeah, I think that's like where games start doing that more. And we see it's really common now. I mean, Halo is a great example of that.
It's everywhere now. And games use audio cues to let you know that moment that you thought was intense is now over, right? Mm-hmm. Halo does that. Doom 2016 does an amazing job of that. But it really did start with what David Wise was doing back in the mid-90s. And it became a best practice. We take these things for granted. That's why we didn't want the youngins here for this.
You mentioned Goldeneye, Asif, and like there's that meme going around now of the guy like, hey, we need menu music.
Pause menu music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that.
It's like, I got this, and they're all just like,
that was not David Wise.
No,
but you
Eric
mentioned
Sparrow.
it. Yeah.
We were talking about Rare. That soundtrack also slaps. But yeah, I was specifically talking about his work on Banjo-Kazooie, and just how different it was at the time. If you weren't there to experience it, you won't appreciate it as much. Because, to your point, Blake, it's everywhere now. It's not even a big deal. But back then it was.
It's really cool to like see, and like once again, it's like props to the Super Nintendo's ability to make some great orchestral music. I don't know. They really got it going in so many different ways. There's so many types of different music represented there too. But like, even with Donkey Kong, you get like tropical stuff. You get like you're talking about. You get that really ethereal, like water music, and then you just get like big band like swing stuff too that's like kind of kooky and zany, like monkeying around music. Really, it's like exactly what you would like picture if you're like, all right, you got a giant ape guy and his monkey sidekick, and they're going after bananas in barrels. Run with it. Do like almost like what's that song? Sing Sing Sing. I can't remember who did it, but it's like that. But it's like that really well-known like big band song that like everyone knows. It's been used in like everything.
This is David Wise. Every single one of these, you'll be like, that was a no-brainer. That was a no-brainer.
I feel like Donkey Kong Country also came out right before the Swing revival, so it may have influenced that as well. Like we probably.
Why didn't we see a Donkey Kong Swing crossover game?
I mean,
why don't we see Donkey Kong games?
I miss Donkey Kong.
I mean, there's probably a Skonky Kong like ska album.
Is there a Skonky Kong album out there?
I know a Mario Skart
like
one.
Skake and Pickle and Donkey Kong maybe working together on something. That would be amazing.
Skake and Kong, I would listen to that. I don't know. I can make Skonky Kong happen. If you want Skonky Kong, Donkey Konga was not close enough. Did it have any ska songs in it? I think they had the B-52s. Was the closest they got. I'm
already in a ska band. It's called Zombert Reynolds, but anyone else who wants to get one, Skonky Kong's out there.
It's the impression that I get. Let's blame Donkey Kong for the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I'm gonna do it.
Fair.
Donkey Kong Country, drawing a direct line there. Yeah, no.
Just get this one out of the way real quick. Cliffy B, he's coming in.
Hey,
for sure.
Cliffy B, I want to grab him by the cheeks and kiss his face. He's such a sweet boy.
And he made Jazz Jackrabbit.
Yeah, he made Jazz Jackrabbit, man. I fucking seriously loved Jazz Jackrabbit when I was a kid.
Who doesn't?
That was like was the shareware that I got suckered into like paying for at Target. You know, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
$5, $20 gets you all these games, bro. And then you like play the first level, and you're like, what the fuck? What do you mean unlock it? I paid for this.
I remember those discs. Oh man.
Yeah, why were they selling shareware on discs? What kind of grift was that?
Because gotcha. That was a huge
effective.
grift. It was an absolute grift.
You know what it was? Potato internet, David. Like,
Oh, that's right. That's
our internet
true.
in Canton at that time was atrocious. So I was like, you know what? $8 instead of having to wait 4 years to download. I'm like, it's probably a good idea.
I'm gonna push for those nominations next year because I bought so many of those damn discs.
Yeah, shareware
It's
did
like-
not make it into the Hall of Fame this year.
But
No,
the
it didn't.
AOL disc did.
AOL disc sure did.
Oh man, I'll have a story when we get to that.
Yeah. Also over at Epic Games, hard to not mention Tim Sweeney, the lowly engine coder who became a billionaire.
That was why Epic and Epic Mega Games, as they were known back then, and id Software were always kind of neck and neck because they each had their kind of genius engineer writing engines and just. I talked to Cliffy B recently, and he said, "Yeah, when we were working on Unreal, I would just say, oh, hey, Tim, could we do this?' And Tim would just add it into the engine. So you had that. Cliff and Tim were kind of the Romero and Carmack of Epic at that time, or maybe Romero and Carmack were the Cliff and Tim of
Yeah,
id.
sure.
You know? Yeah.
And there was like a mutual respect between the companies and a sense of competition.
Yeah.
You know, Sweeney wanted to do something in his engine that Carmack hadn't done before, and vice versa. And Cliff really just had an interesting taste when it came to weapon design. I think level design and weapon design on Cliff's part was really what pushed the genre forward. You know, facing worlds to me is like, I know it's not Unreal Tournament's not eligible this year, folks.
Couple
Just letting
years
you know.
it'll be. Yeah.
Well, we have to wait a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
what they did with that franchise is undeniable. And their
yeah.
early days as Epic Mega Games, it set the groundwork for everything we see today with Unreal Engine 5, Fortnite, the ongoing battle with Apple right now.
Yeah.
It's really a sight to behold, and both those individuals definitely deserve to be in this first induction class.
Yeah, man. It's
You
crazy.
mentioned John Romero.
Yes.
His wife Brenda is also being inducted today.
Also, so well deserved. She's kind of done it all. You know, she started as a writer at Surtech on Wizardry 8. That's how long that series was just trucking on. She became, producer, director, and now she's, co-head of Romero Games, lead director, I believe, on Empire of Sin. She can just do anything in the industry. She's a Swiss Army knife, and that's really, really damn cool.
The way I met Brenda Romero, it was at a GDC cocktail mixer, and we were both at the bar waiting to get drinks. She was there first, and then this guy comes and cuts in front of both of us and tries to get the bartender's attention, and I call him out for it, and I ask her what she's drinking, and got her a drink. She introduces herself, then she introduces me to John as well, and we had a lovely conversation. Really, really wonderful, wonderful person.
That's just a great family right there.
Yeah.
And Brenda is, in recent years, maybe even more impressive than John when it comes to designing games and managing products. I just think she's really stood out. And I can't wait to see where Romero Games goes from here. But just a list of legends here so far. Just every single one of these people is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up, the creator of one of the greatest games of all time, Tetris.
Yeah, this was
Alexei
another shoe
Pajitnov.
on.
Yeah,
You have to include
David,
this.
we talked about something else before we did the Hall of Fame. We were calling it the 10 out of 10 club. Games
That's right.
Games that Shacknews didn't have a chance to review because we didn't exist yet, that we would definitely give a 10 out of 10 to.
Yep.
Tetris on Game Boy, Tetris on NES is one of those games. And Alexei Pajitnov, he might be an alien.
He might be. Mathematicians, yeah.
He might be an alien. He might have been born inside the Matrix or something, because Tetris, and spoiler alert again, we're inducting Tetris into the Hall of Fame today.
Uh-huh.
Tetris is like a universal language.
Yes.
It is a game that is so intuitive that everyone knows how to play Tetris. Everyone. You might not be able to, you might not be good at it, but you know it. The instant you see the map or the level and the pieces are falling and you hit the button to spin, you're like, I get it. You know, like Super Mario Bros. With World 1-1 teaches you how to play that game, right? Here's a Goomba. It's coming right at you. You better jump. Oh, you landed on its head. It kills it, right? They teach you those systems. Tetris barely had to do anything to teach you the system because it is minimal in its design, but it's perfect in its
That's
design.
why I think the Game Boy version is just sublime. It was before, like, no fast drop, no hold pieces. It just really, because that stuff can overcomplicate it. Like on some controllers, you might accidentally fast drop, and that kind of screwed your whole game over. That's just frustrating.
Yeah.
The Game Boy version of Tetris is pure, undiluted Tetris. To echo what you said, it's that game that anyone can pick up and play. I remember the Christmas I got my Game Boy. It came packaged with Tetris, of course, and my uncle had his friend Jimmy over, and Jimmy had never played Tetris, didn't play a lot of video games. He picked this up and was glued to it for like 2 hours, and he just got it right there, you know.
And you know, Tetris, like we've witnessed Tetris mania several times over now. We've seen multiple generations discover Tetris. There was the Game Boy, there's the NES. But even today, classic Tetris, what they call it now, right? The NES version of Tetris is probably one of the most electrifying esports in the world.
It is.
You know, it's broadcast on ESPN, for God's sake. Like, it is, it's a mainstream thing where even people who don't like video games appreciate Tetris, to your point.
It's basically the most played game in the world at this point, and
Minecraft is, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, over time,
you know,
the franchise has sold an extremely massive amount of units.
I mean, I would say like Tetris's player base is probably more universal.
Just
than
over
a
time, like
Minecraft.
Osip was saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like people that are gamers that aren't like hardcore gamers, casual gamers, things like that, like people's parents, like what was your cousin's or your uncle's buddy that came over?
Right.
You know, just picked it up and played it for like 2 hours straight. It speaks to what you're saying about it being
diverse
universal.
From a player base, the gender player base is also very diverse. A lot of women, a lot of young girls became interested in Tetris, and still to this day, some of the best players in the world are female in Tetris. And back then, in the 80s, there was this stigma that, girls can't be gamers.
Right.
Tetris disproved that. Tetris was one of those games that really did move the genre, the whole industry forward by being that blue ocean that you're talking about, like open to so many different people, different ages, different whatever group. That's why I say it's like a universal language. Like Tetris, it doesn't matter what language you speak, you can play Tetris.
I think that's why it's so appealing as an esport. It's kind of like, I've played horse, but here's an NBA All-Star team doing their thing. Like, I might not be able to perform at that level, but I get it, and it's super fun to watch.
And then you watch Joseph Sally, the best player in the world now, play Tetris. He wasn't even born when classic Tetris came out. You know, a whole new generation of people are not just discovering the Tetris franchise through new IP like Tetris 99 or Tetris Effect. They're discovering classic Tetris on the NES. And they're innovating when it comes to hyper tapping and like all these new play styles that involve holding the controller differently than ever before. The fact that there's still innovations occurring in the competitive meta of Tetris is insane to me.
On this specific version of Tetris.
Yeah,
you know?
And it speaks to just how amazing that game is.
Yeah.
And how Alexei really captured lightning in a bottle when he created this game. This Hall of Fame was created for individuals like Alexei Pajitnov. And he will be enshrined in Canton for eternity.
Man,
yes.
I got a chance to meet him and play Tetris with him over some rounds of vodka.
That
sounds like a fun time.
He is such a sweet dude. He is like a cuddly grandpa.
Russian grandpa. You know who really liked Tetris? specifically the Game Boy version of Tetris. Steve Wozniak, our next inductee.
Hey, look at
Interesting. Makes
Did
sense,
you know
then.
this?
I did not.
Back, Nintendo Power, that classic magazine for back in the day that Nintendo published, would have this segment like a section in the magazine where you could submit your high scores from Tetris. You would take actual photographs of your screen.
Screenshots.
A screenshot, and mail it to Nintendo, and then you would submit a name, and they would put you on their high score list. Steve Wozniak was at the top of the list for over a year, to the point where Nintendo said, we're not going to put you anymore. So he started submitting it with his name spelled backwards.
I never knew that. That's wild.
Yeah, he is that obsessed with Tetris. He still to this day owns a Game Boy Color with Tetris in it. When he met Gorbachev, he handed him a red Game Boy with Tetris on it. It's funny to me that this founder of Apple, right, co-founder of Apple, really loved video games from the very beginning. When he created the integer basic that the original Apple II ran on, he called it Game Basic. And a lot of things that he did, people take for granted the innovations that occurred at Apple with the Apple I and the Apple II. Yeah. They brought color to computers. They brought the ability to plug your computer into a television and turn your television into a computer terminal.
And not only that, but Woz intentionally left several slots on the Apple II motherboard open because he knew hackers like him, would want to expand their computer. They would want to add hardware later. And then, in fact, I believe that even caused a fight between Woz and Jobs, where Jobs was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. And Woz said, we do this or you find yourself another engineer. Yeah.
There were several times where Woz would stand up for open systems.
Yeah, and it's funny how the Apple II really is the predecessor to the IBM PC, whereas the Mac was a closed box, like Jobs wanted it, right? Yeah, like it's just wild how that happened.
Yeah, a lot of what people really do like about present day personal computers that run on Windows, that optionality that you have, was born out of the design decisions made in the Apple II. Hell, the Apple I was literally just a board. Because they didn't know how to make products really. But yeah, the Apple II, I would argue, is still one of the greatest products ever made, and changed computing forever. But it opened the door for video games at home in a way that we had not seen before. It opened the world for developers to make all sorts of amazing experiences.
Jordan Mechner, John Romero, like you name it, they came up programming games on Apple II. That's how they got their start. That was the platform for them.
Yeah, and there is a lot of Woz in the Apple II. It's truly his baby. He is definitely a large part of the Mac also, but by the mid 80s, he had left the company. He had, I don't know if you know this, Woz was in an airplane accident in very early 80s, 81, I believe. He wasn't all there after that.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, he was not entirely with it. And I think at the time, John Scully had been put in as CEO of Apple because many people on Wall Street, the company was publicly traded, many people viewed Woz and Jobs as too inexperienced to run a company that was valued over $1 billion at the time. This company started with about $2,300 in seed financing that came from Steve Jobs selling his VW bus and Wozniak selling his HP calculator to fund the Apple I. I talk about this, spoiler alert, Apple's being inducted today. Duh. But to take $2,300 and turn it into a company that's worth $2.7 trillion today.
Yeah.
It's quite literally the definition of the American dream, but it shows all the warts of the American dream too. Because Steve Wozniak almost completely liquidated his Apple shares in 1985. Did not benefit, from all of these tremendous gains. Steve Jobs did the same thing because he was pissed off at John Scully. Making matters even worse, if you're ever having a bad day, remember that Ron Wayne the third Apple shareholder, Apple shareholder, sold 10% of the company for like $2,000. That 10% would be worth $270 billion today.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was just tired of dealing with their shit because Jobs and Woz were unhinged in their early 20s. They were wild, right? You had a hippie who like really did not care about anything other than making great products, and he became obsessed with the monetization of products. And Woz, who really just wanted to make computers. They felt like and so many great products are born out of this. Making something that you want that doesn't exist. And sure, there were personal computers out there before the Apple II shipped, before Apple I shipped. No one had created a package of emphasis like the Apple II before these guys. And to their credit, the Mac also, it wasn't the greatest gaming device. It wasn't really the greatest at anything. But it introduced graphics user interface, actual desktop publishing, which, David, you know, like, this is... MS Word shipped on Mac first.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, it's weird to think that Microsoft came up in graphics user interface design on the Macintosh operating system.
Yeah,
you know?
it's wild.
It is.
I write on a Mac every day with Microsoft Word, you know?
Really
things
weird.
Just don't change. Yeah.
It seems like a good natural transition to move to Jobs from Woz here, because Woz is truly more of the story of the early days of Apple, and his fingerprints are all over that.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs lost his job or quit, whatever you want to say, in the mid '80s, and really, he is like a cautionary tale for any CEO in the tech industry about controlling your board of directors, making sure you keep your friends close to you, and maybe not hiring a dude from Pepsi to, you know,
well, the same thing happened at
company.
Atari. Like, you know, Ray Kazar, I think, replaced Nolan Bushnell, and he brought some order, but he was from the textile industry. He didn't know anything about video game culture and any of that. And it's just another, you know, along the same lines of that cautionary tale.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, Jobs, he couldn't quit.
No.
You know, he and we're going to talk about this company too. You know, Xerox PARC is being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
There was this fateful day where Jobs went to visit Xerox PARC, and he saw a few things. He saw a functioning computer mouse. He saw graphics user interface. He saw object-oriented programming. Mm-hmm. And he saw the first local area network. Not all that really seeped into his brain at the time.
Right.
So he ran with the mouse, and he ran with graphics user interface.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we saw in the Mac, really. Later on, when he got into making this next company called Next Computer,
mm-hmm.
they really went all in on object-oriented programming and what would be the network computer of the future. Mm-hmm. So much of what they did at Next is still being used in a way at Apple. It gave birth to that second renaissance of the Macintosh that we saw in the late 90s with the release of the iMac, which obviously became, like, the Macintosh became infinitely more proprietary under the second rule of Steve Jobs. But the industrial design of the products became stunning, right? The iMac was a showstopper. You know, the iBook, the PowerBook, the MacBook, all amazing products. And then the iPod.
Well, people said that, just to go back a few steps, people said that about the Next Computer, right? Like, it wasn't ubiquitous, but it was really beautifully designed. And fun fact, Doom and Quake, I believe, but definitely Doom, was developed on the Next. In fact, when I was researching Stairway to Badass, another long read that we published, this one about Doom, I asked John Romero, I said, you know, fans have always asked, why didn't you and Carmack release your editors? He said, well, they wouldn't have worked on DOS. We wrote all that stuff on the Next computers. And I said, well, why Next? And he said, he said it was just above and beyond anything else we'd use. Carmack especially was just in love with the Next.
The Next computers were interesting because they were competitive with Sun Microsystems from a performance standpoint, but they weren't competitive with Mac from a price standpoint. So they were in a weird market, and they ultimately exited the hardware industry entirely and became a software company and started working on Intel processors and all sorts of weird things. It's funny to think about because Apple made this move to Intel processors later in Jobs' reign at Apple, and a lot of that was due to the work they had done with OpenStep. Next was acquired by Apple in 1997, it was actually almost 25 years to the day. It was December 20th, 1996. $400 million they acquired Next.
Wow.
The greatest acquisition of all time, because you got Steve Jobs and the whole project is a grift. Next is a grift? I don't understand what you're talking about there. But this is they did it. He got back into the company. Oh, Stalker 2. Yeah.
Oh.
There's some chat going on about NFTs, and I'm not gonna. You know what's not getting inducted today? Anything NFT related.
Oh no.
They gotta wait 25 years. And then they're still probably not gonna get inducted.
I hope not.
No, but the state of Apple when Jobs came back was terrible. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. You know, a lot of the stuff you hear about short sellers today and how people get frustrated by mainstream media coverage of stocks that are doomed, right? We've seen Nintendo be doomed. We've seen GameStop be doomed. All sorts of companies are doomed. Apple was doomed when Jobs came back. They were like 90 days away from bankruptcy. And he did the most unthinkable thing. He reached out to Bill Gates and Microsoft for a $250 million investment that saved the company, created a partnership with your rival, and it began this what can only be described as the greatest corporate turnaround of all time. Once again, these sad moments of this story, Steve Jobs in his own hubris did not seek the proper treatment for his cancer originally, tried to deal with it with natural healing, and ultimately died as a result of it years later, but did not get to see this moment where Apple is the largest company in the world. Their products are ubiquitous. They're not necessarily verbs, but yeah, they are verbs. FaceTime is a verb, right?
Yeah.
iPhone is everywhere. iPad is everywhere.
Right.
You know, these still have his fingerprints on it. And
I messaged you. Like, people say that, they mean iMessage now.
Yeah, iMessage. Oh, like I saw that on iMessage, or It's undeniably a part of this video game industry. It's like, I spoke with Steve Jobs at the 2010 shareholder meeting about this. I wanted Apple to create their own video game studio. And he was like, no, why not just make our own platform and take, whatever revenue we can off of that without having to take any risk. We don't want to own content, was what he said. 11 years later, Apple owns content, and Apple's paying people to put exclusive content on their stores.
Apple's paying Tom Hanks, Jon Stewart.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jennifer Aniston.
Because at the same time, I told Apple that they should invest in video games. They should straight up buy Netflix, and they should buy Tesla. This was 11 years ago. You go look at the market caps of those companies. You look at the cash balance at Apple. It would have worked out. But yeah, he had a level of hubris, especially related to video games, almost a disdain for video games, where it was never a priority at Apple under Steve Jobs. And I was like, you've reluctantly made the most popular handheld gaming device of all time. Like, do something with it. Yeah. And they have now, years later. But it's undeniable that Jobs and Woz have had this weird tangential path that goes alongside the video game industry for a very long time. One last anecdote about both of them. They actually, going back to your talk about Atari and how making games back then was more electrical engineering focused, they hired Jobs and Woz to make the Breakout cabinet. And Woz took it as like a point of pride that he made it with less chips than anyone had ever made an arcade game before. Bushnell came in and was like, we're going to add some more chips to this, but that's pretty awesome.
Well, you know why? Because the engineers could not replicate Woz's process. They had to add a few more because they were like, unless we hire this dude full time, because I think they hired Jobs. Jobs accepted this challenge from Bushnell saying like, oh, if you can do this under X amount of chips, I'll give you a bonus. Jobs couldn't do it. Never really that great of an engineer. To his to his credit, he knew that, so he brought in Woz. Woz did it, And the Atari engineers were like, "Well, that's great, but we don't even like this guy. We're working in algebra. This dude's doing like Calc 3 over here. You know."
And they both got mononucleosis during that project, and apparently the introduction of color in the Apple II was generated from a late night session at Atari, where Woz was staring at this thing they had. It was like a little pixel projecting thing it had color filters over it. And he figured out hex code for colors, and went home and hacked it into the Apple One, and they figured out color.
That's cool.
On one late night where he was staring at a projector screen. These guys, their lives are definitely intertwined with video games. Funny story about a former Apple employee, Trip Hawkins, founder of EA. Former Apple employee, showed Jobs a video game that he was working on back in the early 80s, and Jobs said, "That's stupid. Get back to work on something else." And he ultimately quit and founded EA. Another example of the stubbornness of Steve Jobs leading to them missing out on another multi-billion-dollar industry. To Chris's point in chat, he wonders if Netflix would have spread to other devices and markets under Jobs. I agree. I think that the closed systems of Apple would have made that an ecosystem product, but present-day Apple has Apple Music on other products, has Apple TV Plus on other products. So it's a good question. 50 Cent blown the sand. But yeah, obviously, two huge inspirations for me as someone who became a millionaire because of my shareholding, because of holding Apple for 20 years. So going back to that original point, there's this tale of the American dream at Apple. But the people who made money off of this weren't really the people that this American dream was built off of. They did make a fortune. I'm not saying they didn't make a fortune, but we get sold this story. In reality, Wall Street made a lot of money off of this. Microsoft made a ton of money off of Apple, which is weird. And individual shareholders that took risks at the right time. If you held on to Apple the whole time, from $1 billion to $2 trillion, you made a fortune. It goes back to Ron Wayne. That guy. He's from Cleveland, Ohio, by the way. I can't think of a more Cleveland thing to do than sell 10% stake in Apple in 1980. Just because you're tired of dealing with these guys. And to Ramsey's point, present-day Apple knows what service revenue is, and it is now, I believe, their second largest revenue segment and their fastest growing. But here's a silly induction. And I think this is the only video game character / individual that we're inducting into the Hall of Fame this year. Bo Jackson from Tecmo Bowl.
Unstoppable.
Like, come on, Blake. You're a Raiders fan.
Yeah, Raider. Come on, man. Unstoppable. Bo Jackson for the Oakland Raiders in Tecmo Bowl. That's basically a cheat. You just throw it to the top to Jackson, and you run it in for a TD.
Yeah, that screen pass, that screen on the top of the screen to Bo Jackson is quite literally unstoppable. Even when you blitz, even if you call the play, Bo is so fast that you can throw it to Bo and still score a touchdown. OP. He is OP as fuck. And Bo knows he deserves this award. And you know how great Bo is? This is the second Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio that Bo Jackson is being enshrined in. 2 times! I guess
what you're saying is
Bo Jacksons, too.
Bo knows Hall of Fame.
Hell yeah. But we could not do this induction ceremony without shouting out Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl. Quite literally, the most OP character in any video game ever.
Just about.
And just a delight. And also,
I love that.
A force of nature. Once again, for the youngins in the chat, if you weren't around for Bo Mania, you missed out. Bo Jackson was a baseball stud and a football stud before that was even a thing. I know Deion Sanders later did that, but Bo literally was a freak of nature when it came to his physicality. And it shined on the Tecmo Bowl video game. But shout out to Bo Jackson just for being awesome. Bo Jackson had to walk so that 2004 Michael Vick could run. faster than anyone else in the game. Yeah. So yeah, in 2029, we'll be back to talk about Mike Vick in Madden. Not Mike Vick, the dog owner.
No, I don't think.
Definitely not.
That'll be an interesting debate, though.
Yeah,
so stay tuned.
Would.
Stay tuned in 2029 to the Shacknews Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
I'm pretty sure the CEO is gonna say something about that one.
Yeah, I don't think Lowell is a big fan of that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Let's continue on.
Yeah, we got a lot.
These are all awesome people, so I want to get through this. I really feel the individual part of this. We're gonna have to hit these people,
I know that we're gonna save a lot of the inductees for tomorrow when you can visit the Hall of Fame. But the people we want to make a point of talking about all the people in this list.
So yeah, next up we got Will Wright.
Max's fame, SimCity.
Creator of the SimCity franchise. And
starting out in humble Orinda, California, in the same shopping center of the Orinda movie theater where I used to work. And my mom worked at a chocolate place before that, and the Maxis guys would come down to get chocolate and stuff. She made friends with them, and she was like, "Oh, my son's in the video game," so I got to go to the Maxis offices. Way back in the day, it was like a couple of offices in the cubicle. They had a pinball machine, and they were working on Sim Ant at the time. So I got a behind the scenes look at them making Sim Ant and how the video game process is made. Sim Ant, not their greatest title, definitely.
No, but that's the sort of thing he would love to make, though, right? It's cool.
Will Wright, I also served him a lot of iced teas when I worked at the Starbucks in Orinda. Just a nice guy. It was when he had been talking about Spore a lot. It was when, before they, years before they did it, when he was conceptualizing it and just what he wanted it to be and how he wanted it to start off. You're just an amoeba on a planet somewhere, and you evolve into a thing, and they kind of started that off with Sim Life in a lot of ways. It was just you grow, you evolve, you leave the planet you're on, and you go out into an ever evolving cosmos where people have their own planets, and it's almost a lot of what No Man's Sky became, but with an evolutionary aspect to it,
and the franchise has evolved beyond city builders to life simulators with The Sims. I don't
think it was his most fantastical project when it finally came to fruition. They definitely had to dial it back a lot, and it still took years to do that. But this guy is definitely a visionary, and he's gone on to just kind of be. He's I'm leaving video games. I'm just gonna go and innovate and be a visionary and help people do cool projects now. And that's where he's gone since basically EA moved him after Spore. Basically,
that original SimCity on PC and on SNES was just. I have hundreds of hours. Played in that SNES version of SimCity, and the music again, outstanding on it. I love that Bowser could come and destroy your town.
I was just thinking he was one of the natural disasters in this.
Yeah, Bowser was the natural disaster in the SNES version.
Yeah,
my love of city builders comes directly from the work of Will Wright, and it's undeniable the effect that he's had on.
Pardon the pun. But he laid the foundation for a lot of sim games in so many ways. Yeah, it was Godzilla in the computer version. That is correct, Ron.
That's right. It was Godzilla. But I did not. The early 90s especially, I did not have a good PC at all. I was very deprived when it came to PC gaming because I had a Mac Plus.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people didn't. That's what, you can look back on certain games like SimCity, even Doom on, the Jaguar. Most Doom console ports until the PlayStation were pretty bad.
Yes.
But even, an average PC cost, $3,000 or $4,000. It was a lot easier to play these games on Super Nintendo or Jaguar.
Families today have multiple computers.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, you had one computer. and like
Yep.
your parents were using it for work or like bulletin board services or trading stocks or whatever, like spreadsheets. Like there was the decision makers in your family usually weren't buying computers based on can it run Doom. It was it was can I do this stupid spreadsheet? Does it have will it work with my modem? Things like that were what our parents, or guardians were considering when buying those things. And then, I had a hand-me-down Mac Plus from my brothers, and that was my word processor machine. They're like, that's all you need. Like, you're in school, all you need is a word processor. And then, I mentioned I played Shuffle Puck on it, but that was about it. And it was before Macs had hard drives. So I was like literally sitting there switching discs all day long. At least they're 3 1/4.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, shout out to Will Wright. Kind of along those lines of simulation games, we're also inducting Sid Meier today, the creator of the Civilization franchise.
Yes, father of the one more turn epidemic that has plagued anyone who's ever played a Civilization. The interesting thing about Sid, just earlier this year, he published a memoir, which is great. If you want to read about early days in the video game industry, he was known as he built a reputation programming flight sims alongside Bill Steely, Wild Bill Steely, his co-founder of Microprose, and their deal was Sid Meier wrote them. And Bill Steely would sell them. And he, as much as he enjoyed flight sims, he got tired of it. And so he started doing more experimental projects like Sid Meier's Pirates, Sid Meier's Railroad, and that led to Civilization. And his name has been on the boxes of his games since I think his second or third flight sim, because Bill Steely, Sid was kind of uncomfortable with it, but Bill Steely, the consummate salesman, said, well, hey, people know your name, so let's put your name on the box. It's okay. It'll sell more copies. And that was just the thing that they did going forward. In fact, I believe Bill Steely was hesitant to put Sid's name on Sid Meier's Pirates because he thought, well, will this hurt your reputation as the flight sim guy? Like people seeing you make this silly Pirates game, but it worked out just fine. Another interesting bit of trivia, though, is that, Sid Meier he's kind of a journeyman game developer. He has a lot of wanderlust. He was the main designer of Sid Meier's Civilization alongside Bruce Shelley, but he didn't make another Civ after that. His name is just still part of the brand because that's everyone associates Civ with him. And this started a tradition at Microprose where, starting with Civ 2, a designer was handed the torch and worked along a co-designer who eventually stepped up to become the main designer on the next Civ game down the line. And Sid just kind of oversaw over this, just making sure all the pieces were there.
He became Tom Clancy's before Tom Clancy's was Tom Clancy's.
Yeah, really. Yes. That's it. That's the perfect analogy. And so
Tom Clancy did not make any video games.
No, he certainly did not. Yes. And I just think that's really cool. He's kind of Miyamoto-esque in that sense. Where
story Shigeru Miyamoto's in front of a Mario title.
Shigeru that'd be wild.
Super Mario Maker 2. No, it's
Shigeru Miyamoto Super Mario Maker 2. So just the shout out to Civ, because everyone who worked on Civ from that point forward wanted to make a game that lived up to that first Sid Meier's Civilization. So yeah, another no-brainer for the Shacknews Inaugural Hall of Fame class.
Absolutely. Yep. And hey, really quickly, I just noticed we got a $15,000 anonymous donation on our Extra Life Marathon.
Wow.
If you can believe that. Holy shit, guys. We're at $35,099 right now.
I'm loading up the page.
Thank you to Anonymous Donor.
Anonymous Donor.
Anonymous Donor says, you know what's cooler than $20,000 raised for charity? $40,000 raised for charity.
Hey! Mazzles! And
we are still on our way. We need a little over $5,000.
And then look at Romsteady. Can't match 15K, but did give us 15K bits.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Romsteady.
Thanks so much, Romsteady. What mazzles all around, everybody.
And Team Shacknews is now ranked, let's see, think we're in the top 30 now. Yeah, we're 29th overall.
Nice. Hell yeah. Well, I just wanted to take a moment. Shout outs to Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. You're doing it for the children. And we can't thank you enough.
We've always, we're really proud of how much we've raised for Children Specialized. Last year, one of the last trips I ever went on, I went to Children Specialized for a ribbon cutting ceremony on our gaming quarter. So they call them guilds. Our group of fundraisers for this hospital all got together and we got to celebrate together. We've raised over $1 million for that hospital as a team, as a collective, not just
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then awesome. The Extra Life as a collective has now raised over $100 million for Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's cool to just be a part of that.
Yeah. We're playing video games. It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. Just awesome.
Yes. Even just sitting here talking about video games. Holy cow.
Yeah, talking about video games, doing whatever, streaming about video games.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to the Enman family who started this whole thing, to the Children's Miracle Network for putting this just on their back and carrying us. Shout out to the Make-A-Wish Foundation for brightening the days of all these children that are in tough situations, and then specifically Children's Specialized Hospital. They provide care to children who can't afford crucial medical care for traumatic events. They have some of the best facilities for physical therapy, for mental health efforts, for the families themselves. These stays, when you have a traumatic injury, stays in hospital are not a week long. They're months long.
Yeah.
And there are facilities inside of Children's Specialized where parents can take showers, parents can rest, parents can fax or work, There are families there that basically live out of that hospital while their kids are getting care. And it's undeniable that it's a better way to treat patients and their families than most places get. Obviously, I want everyone to have access to the best care on earth. But for now, this is our we've been kind of tied at the hips with Children Specialized for years, and I can't wait to go back there. I hope to bring more of the staff there, because when we get to visit, we play games with the kids, and it's just amazing. Last time I was there, I was playing Clue with some kids. And that was really fun. We've donated a Nintendo Switch to that. I think a Switch Lite was donated to that.
That's awesome.
That hospital too. So we've done a lot at Shack for Children Specialized, but it's been very rewarding to see just the benefits. Like you literally see tangible benefits, especially last year. Last year.
Oh yeah.
When COVID was running roughshod in the entire world, still is. These kids needed our help, and it's just great that we can be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you to everyone who's donated, and thank you, Romsteady, for those bits.
Yes.
We got a lot more to go here, guys.
Let's keep rolling.
Harold Shaw from Atari.
Yeah. This is another great induction. Particularly important because I think a lot of times in these conversations, video games were and still are, sadly, a very male-dominated industry, but there were and still are women who make a ton of difference and move video games forward. So Ozzy wrote the induction blurb for Carol Shaw, but she's one of the first female game programmers in the industry, and the fact that she could just make the impact that she did is really a testament to just kind of paving a runway for women as she did. She worked at Atari, not just on 2600 games and coin-op games, but on the computers, which you don't hear mentioned as much today. But the Atari 400 and 800 personal computers were pretty popular among game programmers as well.
Yep.
Budding programmers to develop on. So it's really special and appropriate that we include Carol Shaw in this inaugural Hall of Fame class.
She's probably most famous for River Raid, which was on the Atari 2600. It was I believe, developed by Activision. She had worked at both Atari and Activision.
Right.
Got out of Activision probably at a good time. But it's undeniable. Like, I think a lot of, and we've had a few women inducted so far, but the industry had been dominated by men. But there are these extraordinary individuals like Carol Shaw that kind of trailblazers for who we see today. And yeah, it would be real dumb of us not to include her. So here we are, just another Atari employee, because Atari, I think in present day, people think of speaker hats and VCS when they think of Atari.
Mm-hmm.
But in the late 70s, early 80s, Atari was like synonymous with video games before Nintendo took over the world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Blake, we got another lady that we're inducting here, right?
Yeah, and this is a perfect example. Blake can speak to Lady Ada Lovelace, but here's someone who, even though she didn't directly make a game, was instrumental to the video game industry in a way.
Look, you don't have Ada Lovelace, you don't have computer programmers. It's that simple. Like, Ada Lovelace is the first computer programmer way back in the 1800s. This woman was just an incredible genius, a well-known mathematician, just a scholar. She did dabble in some of the more like occultist stuff, like the phrenology, where they measure your head and stuff like that. But overall, pretty brilliant. And she worked with another person on this list, Charles Babbage, who was basically making the primitive computers, like well before the modern things we know today. And it was all using a punch card system. And that punch card system was being used on modern PCs up until the mid 80s, right? So some of the stuff they put in the process, obviously computers changed over time. There were ones that used tape and stuff like that along with the punch card system. It wasn't it wasn't just the same thing that Ada Lovelace was working on. But yeah, she pioneered computer programming. First computer programmer was a woman. It was Ada Lovelace. She was also a badass historical character. I want to see a movie based on Ada Lovelace, because she tried to pull some Ocean's 11 shit, right? She got a bunch of people together to try and figure out an algorithm to win horse races and stuff like that. And she ended up being super in debt to this syndicate. Basically she owed the mob money, right? And it turned into this whole crazy thing. Just sort of a wild woman to begin with, loved gambling, and just did a bunch of super badass stuff before dying of cancer at the age of I think it was 32 or 36.
36, yeah.
36. And yeah, she what she accomplished in her small amount of time and how brilliant she was is just quite remarkable in general. Even if she wasn't even if she wasn't the first computer programmer, she was still an amazing human being. And,
that's cool. Chris was pointing out in chat, the GPU powering the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4000 series is called Lovelace.
There you go. Look at that.
That's awesome.
That's an awesome way to honor her.
Also, the Lady of Lovelace? Come on, that sounds like something out of Game of Thrones. That's badass as hell. A super badass name.
The Countess of Lovelace. Just
Lovelace.
Badass.
Yes.
Total badass. Welcome to Canton. It's been a long time in the making for Lady Ava Lovelace. Shacknews didn't exist when she was doing it for Shacknews.
One of the few people.
That's how far back it goes. The spirit of doing it for Shacknews.
One of the few people to not exist at the same time as us at some point.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild that we can be talking about technology and innovation, and there's someone who's we have zero overlap with at all. A lot of these people have gone on. Yamauchi's no longer with us, Iwata's no longer with us, Steve Jobs is no longer with us, but they were there while we were here.
Yeah,
we at least saw them. We saw
their influence in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this induction so special. It's not that we were dragging our feet on this. It was just that the Hall of Fame didn't exist. And that's true of our next inductee, too. Jerry Lawson, creator of the video game Cartridge.
And the first video game console that used the interchangeable cartridge. Yeah. I think what's really special here is that Jerry Lawson was an iconoclast, kind of if you didn't want to be, or whether he wanted to be or not. You know, he was one of only 2 black engineers who belonged to the Homebrew Computer Club. And when you hear that, you usually think of Woz and Jobs because they were very prestigious members. But Lawson and a buddy of his were there too, and Lawson went on to, while working at Fairchild, he led the development effort for. He made one of the first, not the first, but coin-operated arcade games in his garage while working at Fairchild, and then he captained efforts to make the Fairchild Channel F, the first console to use interchangeable cartridges. You know, before then, I mean, when Atari released Pong for home consoles, it wasn't as a VCS or 2600 cartridge. It was as a big box that had Pong in it, and that was it. Kind of like the Magnavox Odyssey that Ralph Bayer pioneered. And that was copied shamelessly by a lot of people. Even Nintendo, one of their first home video game consoles was a Pong clone. And their variation was, this is 2-on-2 tennis. You know, like that was their big spin on Pong. And before during that time, what you saw was what you got. You played the games that were built in to that system, and it's kind of weird how that, like, the spirit of that is still alive today. Like with things like the Super Nintendo Classic, what you see is what you get. You can hack those. You couldn't hack these, but Jerry Lawson changed all that, and systems that came a little bit after, such as the Atari 2600 and the NES, that technology, the idea of putting games on individual cartridges, or tapes, as a lot of kids and parents called them back then, can be credited to Lawson and his team at Fairchild.
Yep.
Absolutely.
There's even I believe it's the IGDA Foundation does a award in his name every year to highlight a successful minority in the video game industry, and he is a trailblazer.
Absolutely,
very much so deserving to be enshrined here in Canton, Ohio, at the Shacknews Hall of Fame. Boy, the hits keep coming.
They do.
It's just stacked list of individuals here.
We have a nice run of influential women coming to join Carol Shaw and Ada Lovelace. Bonnie Ross is a name that people might associate more with Halo today. She's the head of 343 Industries, so she's kind of the master chief of Halo, if you will. But she's been at Microsoft since the 90s. She was on the ground floor of the Xbox team. She was actually working in publishing PC games in the Microsoft Game Studios and the PC Group, as it was known then, and got into Xbox publishing with games like Jade Empire around it. I think that was... would have been like 2003 or 4, somewhere around there. The cool thing about her, I wrote her induction blurb, and I learned a few things about her I didn't know before then, such as after she graduated, first of all, she was one of only a few women in her computer science courses. And when she graduated, she shotgunned her resume to several tech companies, and Microsoft was the only company to respond, and she really liked the culture there, and she joined. So she's more one of those women who... She's kind of the face of 343 in a way, but she does a lot of behind-the-scenes work to help those teams do what they do best, which is make great Halo games. And I imagine she has to be feeling pretty good right about now, given how well Halo Infinite is doing. So it's really cool to bring Bonnie Ross into the Shacknews Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And then next up we have Donna Bailey, who is... largely responsible for
Centipede.
Was a software developer on Centipede, worked at Atari, kind of went on to, leave the video game industry or return to the video game industry, but her early influence on Centipede, and she said, it didn't seem bad to shoot a bug when describing the game.
And I think most people can agree with that, right?
It's not a humanoid, but it's something I'd find in my garden.
Right. I think back then, video games really did require imagination to play. Like I think they weren't graphically representative of whatever we were dealing with. But Centipede did feel like I don't know. It was a very special cabinet when it shipped.
There's a few things to note. It's a lot like Space Invaders, but instead of you have houses or whatever down below, like the cover is a disadvantage in a lot of ways. Like you want to shoot out a lot of those mushrooms. But like honestly the real trick is like learning how to like line up the mushrooms to get everything in so that it just wiggles all down like one path and you just shoot it and keep that area clear. That's like the pro strap. But yeah, it kind of took like you want to keep your space clean. You can move in multiple directions. It wasn't just left and right. You can now move up and down and diagonally in the game. So it kind of like it innovated there. Added those spiders that would like show up in your space that you had to clear out. You clear out the mushrooms. Like gave you a ton of more stuff to do.
One thing I love about her story is that she left General Motors. She had a job at General Motors working on programming cruise control. And she saw, like, one of her friends took her to an arcade. She saw Space Invaders. She was like, oh, I could do that. Got a job at Atari. It's just, I love that, the genesis of her entrance into the space. And like you said, like, Centipede did innovate from a gameplay perspective in a lot of ways, and definitely has some iconic sound design too. I know she wasn't responsible for that per se, but I always think of the sounds of that cabinet when I think of that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, another just very worthy induction into our Hall of Fame.
I can still hear it, the mushroom sound, the
yep,
like at the end of each level, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that like the Centipede like moving faster sound. Yep, it's good stuff. Play Centipede if you haven't, kids.
That's all.
Respect the history.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's what this is all about.
Definitely some more influential women in video game to honor on this list. A lot of people know Amy Hennig is like the Naughty Dog narrative designer. I know she's moved on to other projects at this point. I can't remember where she is now. I think she was working on a Star Wars game that got canned.
Yeah, that's I think what most people think of right now. But of course, she also was the narrative designer on the Uncharted games, and really just a kind of a personal hero to me, given that she does, what I love to do. She's telling stories, and she's doing it with, through video games. And I just think that, and I feel this way about the next nominees, that you really can't think of a lot of the advancements in contemporary video game storytelling without talking about Amy Hennig. And it just goes to show the diversity and variety of inductees into our Hall of Fame, how we're not just talking programmers or artists. We're talking writers. We're talking computer scientists.
He designed one of the weirdest SNES games ever.
Oh,
Michael
really?
Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City.
Oh
that was a weird game.
It is super weird.
I was looking at her list, on Moby Games or whatever, and I was like, huh?
You know what? I kind of missed that era of like pro athletes in these weird video game spin-offs, like Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City, Shaq Fu.
Yes,
those sorts of games,
TJ is saying Amy Hennig is currently one of the lead writers on 2022's Forspoken.
Got it.
From Squeenix and Luminous.
But did anyone think they needed like an adventure platformer featuring Michael Jordan?
You know what? That makes sense though. Like Air Jordan running and jumping. I'm in. Like that.
And
makes
also
sense.
like you think back when they released the game, which I think was like in like the peak of Jordan Mania,
Yeah,
so it's like, we're gonna cash in on this, and obviously maybe not the most amazing narrative designed games that Amy Hennig has worked on, but just like you look at the vast array of things that she's done, I was like, wow, that's just a crazy career. Working at Crystal Dynamics, working at EA, working on different IP, working with Naughty Dog over there at Sony. Yeah,
It's just kind of cool though. Like it gives her such a deep breadth of experience.
Absolutely.
And
just another awesome inductee.
Absolutely.
This next lady also just.
I'll talk about.
I hold her in very high regard.
Yes.
Yeah. Roberta Williams.
I think most people do. She's so nice and she's just so brilliant. Roberta Williams and Jane Jensen. I think it's appropriate to talk about them together because
absolutely.
Jensen was one of Roberta Williams' proteges. So Roberta Williams played, her husband and Sierra co-founder Ken Williams was a computer programmer, and I think it was an Apple II home for work at one point, and she played Zork on it. And she really liked it. So she went to a computer software store to find more adventure games, and there weren't any. So she did what a lot of these self-starter entrepreneurial types do and said, well, I'll just have to write one. So they worked. Roberta and Ken worked at their kitchen table. He wrote code, and she wrote the script for the game that became Mystery House. And if you look at the graphics for that game, it was groundbreaking because I believe it was the first adventure game with graphics. And they're hilarious in a very charming way because she was using what we would refer to today as a drawing tablet, but it was very difficult to use. And so the drawings are pretty bad, but they get the point across, and they accompanied her text. So that became kind of her signature. Games like King's Quest, Space Quest, they would use that combination of showing you a scene, letting you control a character, but you would still type verbs and nouns in to interact with the game world. She went on from Mystery House, which was the game that launched Sierra Online, to the King's Quest games. And that's where a tradition at Sierra started. With every King's Quest game, starting with 2, I believe, Roberta Williams would take someone under her wing. They would co-design with her. And then she would say, all right, now go off and create another product for us. Al Lowe, who we'll come up to in a little bit, that's how he got started. That's where the Space Quest designers got started, keeping that Quest name going strong. And also, if you might remember this, the King's Quest was actually supposed to be an exclusive to the IBM PC Junior.
Yeah.
IBM wanted to market computers to kids, and even though the IBM PC Junior failed spectacularly, they ported King's Quest 1 to like the Apple II, other IBM PCs, and so the franchise...
IBM was really trying at that point to like hold on for dear life to what they had, which was a monopoly on the PC market, and ultimately had to give in, and the whole world of IBM compatible computers became a thing.
I remember looking for that sticker on boxes, the IBM or 100%. The IBM PC are 100% compatible. I always would check for that before I bought a game.
That was like a big deal.
Right.
It was funny. It was like a selling point. And now look at IBM.
I know. Yeah.
Now it's like...
Now look at...
Now look at...
What is IBM? Like, do you know what IBM does today? They don't make computers. What do they do? Does anyone know what IBM does?
Do they make
Watson? Their name...
Isn't that it?
They make this ethereal AI that plays chess and Jeopardy?
Like their name is still on point because it's International Business Machines. They didn't pigeonhole themselves into computers at the very least.
There you go. They make international business. There you go.
No, that's it.
You're dead on, Blake. A lot of point of sale computers are still IBM's. They do a ton of back end stuff. They kind of compete with Oracle. Like I know what they do. I'm just kind of joking. Like to David's point. The tremendous fall from grace of like, we're going to dominate the PC market with the IBM compatible Junior or IBM Junior.
And then everyone came along and
back before Microsoft was Steve Jobs' whipping boy, he used to just go at IBM. That was his North Star.
I'm on the IBM website right now because I was genuinely like, I wonder how many times I can see the word cloud. By the way, it's a lot. And secondly, there is an ad for Buffalo Jeans as a client success story on the IBM main page. So there you go.
Okay,
that's all. They pivoted to denim. Good for them.
They're a client success story, and it reads, after closing its brick-and-mortar stores to focus entirely on digital channel, the Montreal-based retailer boosted its online sales tenfold in 24 months. So that's IBM. They're saving jeans all over the world.
I mean, that is an international business machine. Blake, what are Mario's jeans made out of?
Denim.
Denim. Okay, we're moving on.
Let's say the stream's getting long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Charles
Jane Jensen.
Jane Jensen. Sorry.
Jane Jensen. No, Blake, I know you love that joke. You could just hold it in. Let it just bubble up in you for the rest of the night, because I know you loved it. Jane Jensen was Roberta Williams' protege on King's Quest VI. That game really, so the thing is, Roberta Williams was a trailblazer. And like a lot of trailblazers, a lot of her designs worked kind of better on paper than they did in execution. Like King's Quest was great. I love those games. But like my sister got really into them, but she played them with a guide because it was very easy for like the first 4, maybe 5 KQ games to get to like near the end of the game and realize you'd missed an item on like screen 27. And if you didn't have a save game, you were starting over.
I was starting over.
And yeah, I had to do that on KQ2. I think I was like, okay, well, but if you waited outside the cave, you saw the 1960s Batmobile come driving out. So I was all about that. But Jane Jensen really kind of like tightened up a lot of her storytelling in KQ6. And she did well enough that Ken Williams said, all right, go make a game. So she proposed Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers. And the sequel to that, The Beast Within, a Gabriel Knight story, aka Gabriel Knight 2, I will submit is the greatest FMV game ever made. Maybe one of the only good FMV games ever made. But I love Jane Jensen's stories. I thought the Gabriel Knight, especially 1 and 2, 3 was kind of plagued by Sierra getting too big and adventure games falling out of vogue because of first-person shooters, really. But Jane Jensen and Roberta Williams really kind of go hand in hand, and I was glad to.
It would be a shame for us not to mention the world-famous Roberta Williams FMV game, Phantasmagoria.
Yeah.
Greg's nomination for Horror Game of the Year.
That's right.
That's right.
So here's a funny story about Phantasmagoria. That was actually dictated by Ken Williams. He's like, all right, we're doing all FMV games now. And Jane Jensen was like, oh, really? Shit, that's bad. So she was like, what if I make Phantasmagoria, but like good? And that's how Gabriel Knight, A Beast Within came about. That script was like, it was like 600 pages or something. I still love that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, Roberta Williams and Jane Jensen, happy to have them both in the Hall of Fame.
Legendary storytellers too,
queens of adventure gaming, I would say.
Absolutely. Those King's Quest games were amazing, and then what they went on to do, they told stories better than most developers did over there.
Yeah, absolutely. This might surprise you, especially Asif, but like I was super into adventure games back in the day. Mm-hmm. I don't play them as much anymore, but like the thing is, because I love their games because it wasn't just like make your choice here and then just watch the novel unfold. Yeah. They were puzzles. You had to interact with the game world. You had to think.
There was a lot of problem solving in their games.
There's a lot of problem solving, and it's nothing against today's adventure games, but they're just, to me, they're more like interactive movies or interactive books than they are games, and that's fine.
They're like press A to advance the game.
Yeah, and like so-and-so will remember this. And I think what bothers me about a lot of them is because like, oh, I got a different ending, but like ultimately your choices don't matter that much. Not as much as you're led to believe, because obviously there's a big picture they're working toward. But like, with King's Quest and Gabriel Knight and other adventure games like Full Throttle, Blake, I know that's one of your favorites, one of my favorite games as well. You were doing a lot of problem solving, puzzle solving, and it felt like the perfect fusion of game, play, and story. And I just love those sorts of adventure games.
Lots of stuff to find, too.
Lots of things to find, to think about, to inspect.
And I know we had mentioned Charles Babbage. When we were talking about Lady Ava Lovelace, but
Babbage,
the patron saint of the personal computer, right there.
Yeah, yes. I mean, he's probably most well known for being the namesake of Babbage's. Before GameStop and election.
Awesome. Let's pour one out for Babbage's in Belden Village Mall before it became a GameStop.
Well, that's the thing. Babbage's was in there, but there was never a game. It became a software, etc.
No, that was a separate store. That's where Claire's used to be at, like the Junction, software, etc. And then down that corridor toward, I think it was Sears. That's where Babbage's was. So they were actually two separate stores.
Oh, that's right. So they were both there. Both of those companies now subsidiaries of GameStop. But I don't think they ever actually had a GameStop in the mall.
Yeah.
You might be right. You might be right. I forget now.
I think. I'm gonna Muppets this and keep it moving right along.
Sure.
Babbage, basically invented what we know, like probably like what would be like the caveman ancestor of the computer, in a lot of ways. Like at first, he made a machine that was called a difference engine, and it was mostly just like a calculator, right? That's like all they really had beforehand. And you could do math functions. The difference engine could do polynomial functions and not need division or multiplication steps to it, right? Like they could skip some of the processing like power to get from point A to point B. But it was when he started designing the analytical engine that it became more of a computer-like thing that could function on. It wasn't just. I mean, all computers do is math, really, in a lot of ways, but. But it's the functions that they can execute, like based off of that surface.
This is a contemporary of Lady Ava Lovelace.
Yeah, they were homies.
Also another individual that lived in a different time period. Born in 1971, passed away in 1871. Very, very far ahead of his time.
Ada was obsessed with Babbage when they met, and she was like one of the first people. She was a futurist in a lot of ways and saw the potential for what Babbage was doing, and that's why she became a programmer and made the cards, the punch cards, that would be used on his machine. Now, he never really finished working on it. He just sort of died and had been improving upon the thing as he went along, collaborating with people that were better engineers than him along the way, and just sort of, bringing in, like, these creative, like, high thought groups to execute his concepts.
To your point, Blake, earlier about Lady Ava Lovelace being really an interesting story that should be told in like film or something, I feel like Babbage is also that. Like, I would love.
Babbage would be in her film. She'd be like, Babbage, I need a tech guy to get us into this safe. Like, and he's like, I've got the machine to drill through that safe. You son of a bitch, I'm in.
If you've seen the movie The Prestige, like, I would love to see like a Prestige style film based on these two individuals. Like, I
want to see Ada Lovelace, but she's like, it's like Rick and Morty, like she's Rick, right? Like that's what I want. I want Ada Lovelace just going around drinking and shooting.
At that point, let's just do Ada Lovelace Vampire Hunter or something.
I'm into it. All right. I think
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
If they could do Ada Lovelace would probably go after werewolves. I think since Abe Lincoln got the vampires and then he did Pride and Prejudice and zombies already.
So I know we're talking about like historical individuals here. But we were just talking about Sierra and adventure games. And one of the weirdest, quirkiest, most ridiculous games ever, maybe ever to ship, but definitely at its time, it's very important to think about these games in the context of when they shipped.
Yes.
Leisure Suit Larry changed everything. Everything that you see in Grand Theft Auto came out of Leisure Suit Larry. Leisure Suit Larry was about having sex, right? That was the goal of the game. They made a game about getting laid. Get Larry laid was like
the ultimate puzzle for men, right? Like, how can I go out and score with these? Yeah.
Al Lowe was the creator of this insane franchise that still has entries being made all these years later.
I think one of the greatest things it did was, like, the way that it, like, you were able to get into the game, the age identifier, is it just asked you trivia that you had to be, like, an adult to know, right? It would, like, ask you about, like, old TV shows and shit like that. And, like, this is before the internet was, like, ripe with all the answers of the universe or whatever. So, like, getting through that process.
It was about, like, going to school. I think it was middle school at the time for me. And, like, our friends would be like, so what are the answers to that thing? And, like, older brothers or uncles or whoever would give us, like, a little heads up. And we're like, okay, I think we can get into Leisure Suit Larry now. That was the whole thing. But, yeah, what a weird, quirky game. But Al Lowe had to be on this list. Because this just that is... I really do believe that. You don't get the brash ridiculousness of GTA without Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, and like that just kind of speaks to the spirit of Sierra. Like Ken Williams, he looked at this idea, he was like, all right, go make it. In fact, like a bit of Sierra trivia. Also, if you remember this game, it's called like Soft Porn or something. The cover is a bunch of women in a hot tub, nude women in a hot tub. Roberta Williams was one of the women on the cover of this game. So she was probably very on board with the idea of Leisure Suit Larry too, you know? Yeah.
Sure. No, that I think that they were taking risks. They were making like really
honestly, I don't know, venturing into like the adult entertainment world is like something that has happened universally throughout video games' existence, and Leisure Suit Larry honestly is one of the most tactful ways it was done. Like, I know it's like seems like a sleazy game, but like Larry was I guess respectful for what's
no.
At the time. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right, Blake. Like, that's a really, really good point. Because here's the thing. Leisure Suit Larry, at the end of the day, was still a puzzle game. It was about solving the problem rather than, the solution. It was about getting there.
Yep.
And it was still it wouldn't really fly today, but it was still tactful. But you compare that to a game from that era like Custer's Revenge on the Atari 2600, which was just crude and just scummy.
I mean, everything about that
is
game
the sort of thing
immoral.
We'll never see in the Shacknews Hall of Fame. But Leisure Suit Larry was a well-made game with a story and actual puzzles to solve. It wasn't just about ogling women. Again, it wouldn't fly today, but it's definitely more in the spirit of what Sierra was doing back then compared to something like Custer's Revenge.
It's funny you say that it wouldn't fly today, but they did I know it wasn't Sierra that did it, but whoever owns the IP did launch a new game in this universe. And it incorporates how out of place Larry is in the 21st
It's the sort of story it would have to tell, right? Like, it's like if Duke Nukem came back, it would have to be like very self-aware.
That's what I say, is that if you do revive the Duke Nukem IP, that you do it similar to what they've done with the Larry IP, where he's you almost lampoon Duke.
Yeah.
And that's what they did with Larry too. But Al Lowe, just for being brave enough to make such a ridiculous game, and I love that was an era where you really could experiment in storytelling and get away with it still. Before people were so offended by everything.
Right.
And granted, back then, parents hated this game.
Oh yeah, of course.
Could not stand it. Good God. People who call me during streams, you just
start the Shacknews hotline. Like, yes, I have something to say about Leisure Suit Larry. You're on there.
I just wanted to call in and say,
it's been a long time.
I remember playing Leisure Suit Larry. It was a really fun game, and I just really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to call in and say, you guys are doing a great job. Really love what you're doing. I'm gonna maybe donate to Extra Life.
Yeah,
donate.
We need money. Give us more
so
money.
Close to our goal, people. Please, we're like 20 minutes away. But while y'all are donating, I'll drop it in the chat just so you know where to go to donate. I want to talk about Kinuyo Yamashita.
Yeah, like these next two are right up your alley. Yours and Asaf's both, honestly.
Okay, so I want just to note, like, Kinuyo didn't write the theme to Castlevania, but she would compose the entire soundtrack for Castlevania, and she did it under the name James Banana, which was a nod to the composer of the original Dracula film. I mean, few soundtracks bang as hard as the original Castlevania soundtrack, David. You know it.
Oh,
I know
you're
it.
absolutely
The whole
right.
goddamn world knows it. Like, it's spoopy, but like very modern at the same time. And that death music, just when you hear it, it makes you angry.
Yeah.
It makes you angry, like you're ready to go back for more, get in there, kick more butt, eat more turkey out of a wall.
Absolutely. That's where I put my turkey, Blake. I don't know about you, but I store it in my wall.
I keep all my baked goods and perishables inside walls because, I mean, air can't get into that cement. And then you just break it open.
That's just using your head.
Right? Yeah.
That's just using your head.
Vampires know this. It's an ancient food preservation technique, and that's why they hide turkey in the walls. No, but yeah, she composed the soundtrack to that. She did some Power Rangers games as well. But what's really she did the soundtrack for Kojima's Snatcher.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Like, yeah, I mean, obviously Castlevania is like the thing, but that game's soundtrack is fantastic. You know, it's Kojima's like homage to Blade Runner, so it's like that '80s synthy sound. You know, very good stuff.
Let me just, I want to throw out one quick bit of trivia here, Blake. I'm not sure if you knew this. This is actually, so you mentioned her name, James Banana, being kind of like a nod to the composer of the original Dracula.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that. This was actually kind of nefarious. In Japan, for a very long time, Japanese game developers would not credit their talent. They would give them pseudonyms because they didn't want other companies poaching their talent. So they figured if we don't put the real names in the credits, then they don't know who to come after. And the problem with that was that when that talent would try to ask for a raise or go elsewhere for more money, those companies could say, "What did you work on?" "Oh, I worked on Castlevania," or "Oh, I worked on Mega Man," to allude to another inductee we have coming up. Those publishers could say, "Oh, well, we don't see you in the credits." Like it took a very long time for some of these composers and designers to get the credit they were due because the companies wanted to obscure their real names for very selfish reasons.
Sounds like it worked too.
Oh, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. It wasn't until around Shovel Knight, that the composer of the original Mega Man finally got her due. Like, she was just another salary worker at that time, and people were like, "What the hell? You composed the soundtrack to Mega Man. Why aren't you like living it up?" And she was like, "I never used my real name." So back to you, but that's just a little bit of a bit of trivia about why the names and some of the credits for these older games like Castlevania, like, they're funny to laugh at, but when you know the real story, it's kind of like, wow, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Let's see. We have another musical composer next on our list as well. Nobuo Uematsu, who I think a lot of people are familiar with because, god damn, this is the granddaddy of all RPG composers right here. This is the guy behind every single banger in Final Fantasy.
Yep.
Right? Like, he's just he
it's
rocks.
Like a god tier musician.
And he's like a rock and roll, he's like a rock star too, man. This guy fucking shreds.
Yep.
He plays in a band that just does like heavy rock versions of his Final Fantasy like arrangements and stuff like that. And then he also did like Chrono Trigger, little game called Chrono Trigger, Lost Odyssey, which is a fan
soundtrack.
Oh my god, I love that. Blue Dragon as well. I mean,
Final Fantasy VII.
Come on. Yeah,
that soundtrack alone is enough to get you into the Shacknews Hall of Fame.
But I mean, so much of that soundtrack though is based off of music that he did for the previous Final Fantasy.
Oh, I know.
Like like it's every Final Fantasy is an evolution. You go from like chiptune, like chocobo songs, like do 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 do, to full on freaking orchestras of people doing that with like timpanis.
He did the Smash Bros. Brawl theme.
That's right. I was gonna bring that up too, man.
Wow, that's cool.
His list, his discography, if you want to call it that, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, you're lucky to have one game soundtrack as good as this guy. This guy's been doing it since the 80s. And like, you think of how music hardware has evolved in the time that he's been a musician, and how his music has evolved with it. Because, Blake, to your point, there's themes, there's songs, there's melodies in Final Fantasy games that he created in the 80s that I think continue to shine today, even in the remake. Yeah,
I mean the battle theme for Final Fantasy, the victory cheer theme.
That victory fanfare is. I literally hum that when I get like my own win in life. Like, I'll just like,
yeah, it's so great.
Yep.
We're actually gonna get to him in a little bit, Chris.
Yeah.
So
good news for you, Chris. We got some good news.
Sure he was on. I made sure he was in there.
A lot of our final individuals that we're nominating are musicians and soundtrack composers. But yeah, some of these Japanese musicians, man, I just shake my head at how amazing they are. And yeah, Nobuo Uematsu is definitely worthy of induction.
They call him the
Absolutely.
Beethoven of video game music, and that is a very apt.
I can see that.
nickname.
Yeah, Johnny Chugs in chat says it should be theoretically impossible to produce so much iconic music, running all the way from Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 14, and not including all the other stuff. Like crazy talented individual, very worthy of this honor. Cannot wait to get them fully inducted into the Hall of Fame here.
Well, they're gonna get inducted so well,
so hard. Yeah. Who wants to talk about Lord British?
Oh, I'm all over this.
Go for it, David.
I talked to him about 5 years ago for my book on Apple II games. He's just such a cool guy. He grew up in a neighborhood where most of his neighbors were astronauts who flew around space with his dad. And so, of course, he was influenced to make these great RPGs. You know, a lot of people, you think of Ultima as a fantasy series of RPGs, and it is. But most of the early games ended with you building a ship and going to space, because that's what Richard Garriott wanted to do. And he's just such an influential designer in what we now refer to as the Western RPG. You know, I would say he did for Western RPGs, or even CRPGs, computer RPGs, what women like Roberta Williams and Jane Jensen did for adventure games at the time. And it's so cool that all of these people were kind of were influencing games in parallel to one another.
Yep.
And Lord British, which was his character in the Ultima universe that was famously assassinated in Ultima Online, even though the character was not supposed to be able to be killed, was just a trailblazer. The word Asta said earlier, and we'll keep coming back to it because it's so appropriate for everyone on this list. In RPGs, not only that, but when he and his family founded Origin Systems, it was very much a family business. You know, he and his brother were working on games. His parents did help with like packaging and shipping, and a lot of other programmers who became famous in their own right worked at him. You know, John Romero worked at Origin Systems before he went to Softdisk, where he met John Carmack and Tom Hall and the rest of the id co-founders. So, yeah, Richard Garriott, Lord British, is just one of those individuals who is famous for doing one thing really well, but in truth, he did a lot, and that's why we got to write about a lot of that in the Shacknews Hall of Fame.
I know we gotta kind of keep it moving, but where did Lord British come from?
This is a great story. He was in this neighborhood of mostly affluent people, all these astronauts and NASA engineers. He went off to summer camp and was in his cabin, and some kids knocked on his door. When they greeted him, they said, "Hey, what's up?" as American kids do. And he goes, "Oh, hello," in that British accent. And so they started calling him Lord British, just as kind of a joke. And he built his avatar, his own character in D&D games around that nickname.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, not to, step all over.
We are running out of time on our Extra Life marathon.
We might go a few minutes over here, but we're gonna get through all these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
I think
it was right to go with people for this stream.
It was because so many of the people created the games that were inducted.
We're going to be inducting games tomorrow. Maybe we'll just leave that as a surprise for you guys to actually read something for once.
It would be cool to get through Extraordinary Things.
Yeah, we can hit the Extraordinary Things. But yeah, let's keep it moving. Howard Phillips, our next inductee.
Yeah, so Howard Phillips and Gail Tilden are another pairing that we could talk about in tandem. So Howard Phillips started in Nintendo's warehouse. He would do what was called quarter runs. You know, remember that before Nintendo got into home games, they were doing arcade games, specifically Radar Scope, which was a failure, and then Donkey Kong. And so Howard Phillips, all these arcade games would get shipped in. He would unload them from this truck one by one, so he got to be a pretty, fit guy. And then he would go around to the arcades to collect quarters. Well, when Nintendo Company Limited in Japan, aka Nintendo HQ, was thinking of bringing the Famicom to the West, they would send Famicom games to Nintendo of America just for them to play, to get kind of their thoughts on them. And Howard Phillips is really into games, so he would play them all, kind of test them, and give his feedback to Minoru Arakawa, who is Yamauchi's son-in-law and the president of Nintendo of America. And it soon became pretty obvious to Arakawa what he had in Phillips, because he would go to Phillips specifically and say, what are your thoughts on this game? And I think Phillips' first big claim to fame was he played Super Mario Brothers 2 and very diplomatically said, this game is not good. It was really hard. Not hard in like a challenging way, but it was really, really damn cheap, like in a not fun way. And later that game, the first time, like he avoided disaster. He felt like, you know what, this could undo a lot of the progress we're making with kids, because they're going to play this game and get really upset that it's so difficult, so absurdly unfair. And so Nintendo wisely kind of reworked Doki Doki Panic into Super Mario 2 USA. Super Mario 2 was released in America later as Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels in Mario All-Stars. And so that kind of gave Howard Phillips definitely a stamp of approval. And he went on to kind of co-write the Nintendo fan club newsletter with Gail Tilden, another representative at Nintendo of America, which became Nintendo Power. And I actually wrote this in my induction blurb, but I said to a lot of American kids, Howard Phillips was the face of Nintendo before they really knew who Miyamoto was, because Howard Phillips appeared in the magazine. He was a comic book character in the recurring Howard and Nestor comic. And so he also founded the Nintendo Tip Hotline, which I called several times as a kid.
Oh, hell yeah.
After getting my mom's permission after the first time, because that phone bill was really big.
It was expensive.
Oh, it was super expensive. But Gail Tilden, that brings us to her. She worked in sales and marketing in Nintendo of America. She was one of the main people in charge with figuring out how to sell the NES in America after the North American video game markets crashed, when retailers would hear the words video game and just go, nope, we don't want any part of that because we're still trying to get these stupid Atari and television cartridges out of our show floor. So she was one who said, like, hey, what if we brand it as an entertainment system, not a video game console? What if we call the games game packs, and we'll sell it with this blaster, we'll sell it with Rob the Robot, so it looks like a toy. And so she kind of helped the NES become this Trojan horse. Your parents thought they were buying one thing, but the kids knew, like, yes, video games, awesome. And she was the editor-in-chief, the first editor-in-chief of Nintendo Power for like the first 7 to 9 years of its run. Wow. But if you can believe it, after that, she went on to do even greater things. She was one of the people that Yamauchi wanted to kind of help proliferate Nintendo's brand, take Nintendo's IP and say, what else can we do with these besides video games? She led the charge for the Pokemon anime, the movies, the Super Mario Brothers movie, which turned out the way it did. But
what about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show?
The Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
I mean, that was the
Zelda cartoon. Well, excuse me, princess. Yeah,
that was definitely a thing.
Yeah. So, like, there were a lot of misses in there, but, like, I mean, Nintendo cereal, like, Nintendo was everywhere.
And it was because now.
It's for breakfast now, and it was because of efforts by people like Gail Tilden. So I was really excited to put Howard Phillips and Gail Tilden in our Hall of Fame.
Nice. Oh yeah, like we hit the Japanese side of the Nintendo ecosystem earlier, but yeah, the American side, there's one that people may think is missing right now, Mr. Reggie Fils-Aimé, but he's not eligible yet.
It's not eligible yet. And, the thing is, people ask this question, and they ask it innocuously, but it's fair. What does Nintendo of America do? What does Capcom USA do? Yeah. The thing is, like, the Japanese, if they're smart, will readily admit that they know nothing about marketing to Western audiences. Without people like Howard Phillips, Gail Tilden, Minoru Arakawa, who listened to the right people, Reggie Fils-Aimé, they would have really no idea how to reach this audience. And that's why today there are a lot of IPs. Like Metroid is much, much bigger in the West than it is in Japan. And that's because Nintendo of America knows how to market those games, those products.
And it goes to Treehouse, it goes to their internal and their external PR now. A lot of the best practices come from Howard Phillips and Gail Tilden's leadership back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And there's something about the reverence Nintendo has for their practices that leads to this pattern of success for them. They're not always successful, but their philosophy works for the long run. This is a company that's been around since 1889. It's not an accident. Awesome. Yeah, we got a couple more here.
Yeah. So Bill Kunkel, he's an influence on all of us, whether we know it or not. He was one of the first, if not the first, serious video game journalist. In fact, what I knew that about him when I went into this. I proposed inducting Bill Kunkel. He worked for a lot of early publications such as Electronic Games Magazine. He pitched video game columns to different newspapers and magazines and wrote about them seriously, the way any other columnist would write about other beats, such as sports and politics. But one thing I learned is that he was also one of the first serious pro wrestling journalists as well. And he was a developer on, I don't remember the name of the game. Chris might know this, but it was the first game that had the WWF license. And WWF wasn't in the title.
Micro League Wrestling.
Yeah, that was it. And it's kind of, it's easy to miss because it didn't have WWF in the title. But the Bill Kunkel, there's even for a long time, just until like the last year or two, there was an annual the Kunkel Award that recognized excellence in video game journalism. And a few years ago, Shacknews received honorable mention for Beneath a Starless Sky. Wow. One of our long reads. So Bill Kunkel is just a huge influence on what we do day to day.
I love the websites in his history.
Yeah.
Do you remember Happy Puppy?
I do remember Happy Puppy. That's old school.
He wrote for Happy Puppy. He wrote for he was EIC of EGM back when it was Electronic Games Magazine.
Right.
EIC of a Tips and Tricks magazine. This guy was doing SEO before search engines existed.
Yeah, he really was.
And, he really was. I love that so many video game journalists in present day industry love wrestling. I don't know what it is, but video games and wrestling are like peanut butter and jelly. And it's just hilarious that he came up in both those different markets.
Talk about being ahead of your time, man.
I know. Yeah. How about that? Yeah.
Straight up goat. And sadly no longer with us. Passed away in the year 2011. But definitely needed to be included in this list.
Yeah.
As an extraordinary individual, and one of the only games journalists that we're really inducting this year.
Yeah, you could say that he was also he was a serious critic. He had fun with it, but he was also he encouraged other video game journalists. He's like, have fun, but take this seriously. Make sure this is, people know that this is deserving of criticism and thought, because video games are a really big business. You could say he was kind of a Roger Ebert type figure for our industry. So Blake, we have
oh man, let's talk about Manami Matsume. This is the woman behind some of the best Mega Man soundtracks ever, including 1 and 2. I think 2. When people talk about Mega Man soundtracks, it's one of the few games where you talk about which soundtrack is best. You know what I mean?
Dr. Wily Fortress 1. But there's so many others you could say, but what about
Flash Woman?
Yeah.
Flash Woman or
Splash
Woman from Mega Man 9, Flash Man from Mega Man 2.
Yeah, Splash Woman from Mega Man 9.
That's the thing. You think about Mega Man, you think about the music as much as the gameplay, and that's because
I agree. I agree about Dr. Wily. That's
yeah.
It's so good.
That's like a freaking heavy metal riff, right?
Yeah.
That's something you'd hear in
he was Rockman. He was Rockman.
Yeah.
Right?
And
we called him Mega Man because it was more marketable in the United States.
But it's
Rockman
all
was
rock and roll. His dog's called Rush because of the band Rush. Japanese love metal and prog rock and stuff like that, and then they just take it and make it better. I love so many Japanese musicians. I love so many Japanese bands, and there's something about Japanese culture where it doesn't matter what you love. If you're passionate about it, you pursue it, and you strive to be as good at it as you can possibly be.
Before the Death Stranding, both of us got to tour Japan and play in front of live audiences there. And you've played a lot of shows in America.
Yeah.
The Japanese audience is so appreciative of anyone who creates anything. It's kind of crazy. And it leads to experimentation. And that's why you get these iconic soundtracks in video games. That's why you get awesome bands. sometimes awesome, amazing artists are born out of that culture.
But
yeah,
I mean, so much of it is a testament in how like Japanese and American cultures have influenced each other too. A great example of this is anime characters usually have giant eyeballs because of Walt Disney. You know, like Japan saw an American art form and made it uniquely Japanese, and now everyone, like every animator, grew up on Ren and Stimpy and stuff, but everyone also grew up on anime, and anime now really influences American animation styles, you know. And I think it's really similar with video games, the way that video game music is composed. A lot of people I know that do chiptune and stuff like that, and I think, you know, we're talking about Mega Man's composer, Mega Ran, our homie Mega Ran. Like, he actually got the licenses to all these beats from Capcom in order to do like hip hop stuff with it, you know. And that's another way that this music just transcends video games. Like, and it's one of the few games to like really have a reach like that. Beyond it, you got DJ Cutman. That's another prime example of like somebody that was greatly influenced by like just the Mega Man soundtrack alone. You know, just like countless artists. Like, it was a huge influence on me growing up. Like, the Mega Man games and the Mega Man X soundtracks, dude, are just so near and dear to my heart. And then she also wrote Final Fight soundtrack. She wrote Dynasty Wars soundtrack, which is like a great side-scrolling beat-em-up game where you basically go through the romance of the Twin Kingdoms story. Sort of like very early iteration before Dynasty Warriors or anything like that. Mercs was such a great arcade top-down shooter. 3 players going at it, collecting those POWs to get just giant bricks of bullets that you would shoot at your enemies. And then most recently, you know, when Mighty Number 9 was being kickstarted, she contributed to that, as did Mega Ran. And then she also wrote some tracks for Shovel Knight, just through basically she works with a label that helps get composers on work. And it's
so cool that Shovel Knight has her work in it, because that game is very influenced by Mega Man.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So Blake, what I was telling you earlier about Japanese developers kind of obscuring their talent, that label you mentioned, they went to her specifically because they wanted to bring her back to the limelight. They were like, this is just credit for what you've already done, because we know what you're going to do now is going to be just as great. Yeah, I thought that's cool that label's mission is like, let's get these great composers, more recognition.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting.
Which is what we're doing today.
Yeah, a lot of these folks end up going to like MagFest too, which is like not a huge convention, but it's music and gaming. It's like very focused on where that they meet culturally. So, you know, she's a rock star now in a lot of ways to a lot of people that grew up on the Mega Man games or love her music, and like, now there's a whole new generation learning to appreciate her. And
all of these musicians, every musician we're inducting today has their hand in the future of music. Also, I feel like we haven't really mentioned this, but these are electronic musicians at heart. They were using sequencers. They were using MIDI. Yeah, I know they were composing things traditionally, Blake, but they were using electronic devices to generate these noises. And as someone who makes electronic music for fun and, you know, has done that for years, I learned a lot from these games subconsciously about how to sequence, how to transition, you know, just experimenting with noise, you know, that I wouldn't have done otherwise. I think that these are the forefathers and foremothers or whatever of electronic music. I know that disco existed or whatever, but present day electronic music is so influenced by video game music. It's undeniable. And I think chiptunes is a perfect example of that. That whole scene.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that to like everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's talk about our next inductee, who Krabs already brought up, Kozo Nakamura. This dude was basically just doing free fusion jazz and like hard like bebop rock and roll over the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. I mean, like crazy ass arpeggios with like string hits and stuff like that Just all of those runs, those then just brings it back with like a nice little groove that was like very reminiscent, or it's very reminiscent of the time, I should say. Like, you totally gives you that like 80s, 90s vibe, like right there, as like the decades are transitioning, and they're just upbeat, they're fast paced, they create the environment for that game so well. And then he goes and does the Simpsons arcade game. Like that's like, hey, here's Danny Elfman's theme song. Just like run with that and like make your own thing. And he manages to inject his own style while like really invoking that Danny Elfman style of composing. You know, they're fast paced bangers. My buddy Petroform, another like chiptune dude, is like heavily influenced by this guy, and I love his stuff because you just get that like beat going, and then throw in like some walking bass. You get like, you know, get some keyboards, then you just throw in insane arpeggios everywhere, and then bring it back down, like take it back up and bring it back down like roller coaster, man. And it's so good. The fucking every boss fight just has that intensity to it because of the way like his orchestral hits hit. I couldn't think of a better way to say that. Sorry. But yeah, just like so money, so friggin' money. Like one of the best like game soundtrack composers out there. Krabs was saying he did Sunset Riders as well. I don't know if he probably did Sunset Riders. Konami, honestly, a lot of the people we've talked about today are Konami composers. Konami really, like, I feel had a real eye for talent back then. Capcom too, obviously, and like, yeah, Square Enix had Nobu, so they're good just with him. They don't really need anything else if you got that guy. But yeah, I think Konami in particular just really had an eye for talent. When you look at like Castlevania, you look at like all the TMNT games this guy did.
Yeah, I think he may have made a song on Sunset Riders.
Maybe the theme song or something.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah,
but yeah, just another brilliant composer that really needed to be mentioned here. And I'm gonna shut up now because I know we're.
It's a very diverse list of individuals here. We have journalists. We have our founders of the website. We have video game developers. We have executives. We have marketing people. We have Bo Jackson from Tecmo Bowl. From Tecmo Bowl. If the final Smash character was just Bo Jackson from Tecmo Bowl, I would have been stoked.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Instead of Sora.
Yeah. Man.
That would have been something.
Alright, we're going to talk about another Konami composer now, though. Miki Higashino, who did the soundtrack to Gradius. But then went on to do the Suikoden series. I've never played Suikoden, personally. But just for Suikoden 2, she composed over 90 new pieces of music for one game. That is also like more than a lot of people that just write
all these awesome shoot 'em ups, though. Like all these awesome shoot 'em ups from our time. Gradius, Life Force, Gradius 3, TMNT.
Yeah, for the NES. She wrote the NES version.
Yeah, the NES soundtrack for TMNT, which honestly I played more of that than I did the arcade game. Contra 3, just a crazy list of games that she had worked on. All of them awesome.
Oh yeah, another, but yeah, just another fine example of Konami having a real eye for musical talent and composers.
That's back when Konami made video games.
They actually started off as basically an intern composer for Konami in like 1980. So, and then they ended up writing some of their most influential music like throughout the decade, as far as like shmups are concerned and things like that. But there you go. But yeah, I think that brings us to the last person on the list who now.
Last but not least.
Yeah, no, definitely not least. Probably, maybe the greatest of all time. The most wonderful game ever. We would never get
iconic game. Like this was the first video game to reach Mania and Fever. There was a Pac-Man Fever.
Yes.
That spread across the nation. And Pac-Man Fever itself was a song. And the sounds that you heard. you can hear the sound of Pac-Man starting up in your head if you think about it. You know, and just the end, or the I shouldn't say the end. That title screen where in Miss Pac-Man.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
dude. Toru Iwatani.
Crazy.
Oh man! So like he was actually designing Pac-Man was supposed to appeal to women, and he was like, "What do women like to do? Well, they eat." It's so silly when you think about it. Like women like to. Everybody fucking eats, man.
Everyone eats.
Everyone fucking eats, dude. And maybe that's why it had such like crossover success. Didn't do well in Japan, but when it came to America, it just like clicked with people. Yeah, the fever hit here first.
We were born in the midst of Pac-Man fever.
Yeah,
like it was like we know no world without Pac-Man.
We're probably all Pac-Man fever babies.
We really are. If you think about it, we're all born in 81.
Yeah.
And Pac-Man shipped in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do the math.
Yeah. Oh, man. But, like, it's also, like, the legend of Pac-Man, like, supposedly he was having trouble coming up with the design for, like, what to do with Pac-Man. And then, like, the legend goes that they got some pizza, some late-night pizza to work on stuff, and he saw the, like, pizza with, like, a slice or two taken out of it, and that's where he got the inspiration for Pac-Man to begin. The name for Pac-Man actually comes from an onomatopoeia, like, it's Japanese slang for eating is paku paku. So he was called Pac-Man in Japan. They changed it to Pac-Man so people wouldn't change it to say fuck man on the arcade cabinets, because they knew that Americans were vulgar and would totally just like graffiti on a beautiful arcade.
Were they paying attention to our high scores where we were saying ass all the time?
Probably. Yeah, and I don't know. It's weird. He would go on. He actually went on to be a producer and like help make a ton of other games as well. Including Time Crisis. That was the one I found most surprising, is that he had done work on Time Crisis, but also Galaga and Ridge Racer. Like, he was a producer on both those games, the Pole Position series, which was very fun arcade racer back in the day.
Yeah, but it was like one of the best racing games at the time.
Yeah.
Galaga, an amazing space shooter that still gets ported to everything. Like, it's like, a new system's out, you better port Galaga to it. It's Pole Position 2, Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, Ridge Racer.
Yeah.
Time Crisis.
I mean, but I've got this game tattooed on my legs, man. I've got Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man tattooed on my body. I love what this man has created so much. I can't put into words what Pac-Man really means to me and how much of a joy it gives me. And that's all because of this guy. And he came back out of retirement just to make Pac-Man Championship Edition. Just to like do one final mic drop and be like, I'm fucking
It's
out.
my favorite Pac-Man game.
It's so good.
It's so good.
So fucking good.
He was away from video game design for 12 years.
Yeah, he's just been a lecturer. He's been like a college lecturer.
And he was doing GDC talks. He still does GDC talks occasionally. But yeah, to come back for one more banger that is Pac-Man Championship Edition is just crazy.
Pac-Man Championship Edition is the ultimate one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so chef's kiss, man. For somebody, and like, I was banging the drum for Pac-Man 99 a lot for these Game of the Year deliberations. You saw how like visibly upset I was about third place in Pac-Man 99 yesterday, Asif. Now, there were a number of reasons for that, not the least of which was I wanted to earn some money for our Extra Life charity marathon and completely failed to do that. But also because, man, like when I fuck up in that game, I am mad at myself. Mm-hmm. Like at one point, like when Championship Edition came out, at first I didn't have a 360. I was playing it at my friend's house, and like we competed for the high score. I got the high score on his account, and I had to go and beat my own high score on my account, in order to like take the rightful throne when I finally did get a 360. You know what I mean? Like, that is how I am. Every time I see a Miss Pac-Man game, like, I am compelled to play it to get the high score on that machine, man. Like, I I don't know. I could gush about Pac-Man, the Pac-Man series, and what it means to me all day, but I will just leave it at Toru Iwatani is the GOAT to me, and like last but not least, for sure.
Yeah,
like,
and that wraps up our legendary list of individuals who are being, or sometimes a group, right? In the case of id Software, but people who we are inducting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
This is a long list. The whole thing, it's very long. There's a lot of games. I kind of just want to make people read the games tomorrow.
Yeah,
I saw someone, I think it was Skankcore, mention that F-Zero wasn't eligible. I'm sorry you don't know how to math, but F-Zero is eligible. It was a launch title on the Super Nintendo over 25 years ago. So it's definitely eligible. Maybe click the link tomorrow and see if it made the list.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if I actually wrote the blurb for it yet. But this was tough. Writing about these things is very tough. Because we're trying to do it in a succinct manner, but still honor each individual inductee. And then for some reason, I was supposed to write while streaming for 8 hours straight today.
Oh man!
So that happened.
A rough day.
Today's didn't eat lunch. But
I feel
can someone check how is the how are we doing on the fundraising? Like, before we go, we should try to hit our goal, right?
I think so. Oh, we hit the goal!
Nice.
Right at the buzzer.
All right, this last little bit they might cut out, but I think we gotta I think I have to play it just to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it. Hopefully without a commercial. Nope, always with the goddamn
YouTube
commercial.
YouTube Premium is invaluable to me.
Well, the holidays are coming up.
They could raise YouTube Premium to $50 a month. I'd still pay it.
It came to the breakdown anyway.
I don't want this to get copyright strike.
Here, I'll turn this off. It's not going on.
We've worked very hard on this. It was a great conversation.
It was.
If this gets muted for that, it's gonna piss me off. But if it does, so be it. Hopefully, you were here to watch this.
It would just be the part with the music that got.
Yeah, I wish that was the case, man. But Twitch is oppressive with how it mutes stuff. It's like, oh, you played a song for 5 seconds, 15 minutes gone. It's like, so not the greatest. But yeah, we've been doing this for a while here at Shacknews. we're not doing this to hit any specific numbers or whatever. But yeah, I know that we are one of the largest donors to Children's Specialized every year, and we are one of the largest guild members in donations each year. So yeah, it's great that we hit our goal right at the buzzer. We streamed for 24 hours over a 3-day period. We showcased some amazing games to everyone. We had the people who loved those games stream those games, which I think is important. And yeah, this sets us up for the end of the year. Tomorrow is our last day at our virtual office here. And yeah, it's been a hell of a year.
It has been a hell of a year for a number of reasons, both good and bad. And we all got through it. And I just want to take a moment to recognize the wonderful crew that we have here at Shacknews, who worked their butts off this year in a difficult environment. These last 2 years have not been fun for anybody in a lot of ways, and you know, we've been getting through it, and being able to get together even remotely like this, like, as much fun, I'd much rather be in Canton, Ohio with you guys right now than doing this remotely. But the fact that we can all get together and still do this even remotely has been fantastic.
I mean, Shacknews has had to pivot a lot in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's just
the stimulus games. The stimulus games were a pivot. Right, we had this whole event schedule planned in 2020 that went poof. This year, we introduced what I think is a huge pivot. Maybe people don't realize it yet, but Shack Pets. The launch of Shack Pets has been unbelievable. And yeah, we've built a new platform alongside our website, and we're continuing to work on that side of things. And editorially, we continue to crank out amazing content. Our review coverage has been featured in basically every possible awesome video game trailer.
I'm pretty sure I saw Halo say something.
Halo was shouting us. Yeah, a 9 out of 10 from Shacknews means a lot to developers, and yeah, thank you to Halo and 343 for including us in that. Yeah. We're featured in a Metroid trailer.
I nearly cried when I saw that.
When I saw Shacknews in a Super Mario Maker 2 trailer, I fell out of this very chair. Just fell out. I didn't believe what I was seeing. They spelled Shacknews wrong, but it didn't matter. They spell Shacknews right now.
That's what matters.
Yeah. But yeah, the brand is doing very well. The team has done well. They very much so deserve this break coming up. We're going to be out. I know we have a couple more streams tomorrow. We're doing a special episode of Pop Goes the Culture before the Shacknews dump, which will be a final news dump for the year.
Yeah, so I don't even know what we're talking about on the dump tomorrow, man. I haven't
had time to think about it.
I'm just like, I have to do a dump. I'm just like, I think we'll just talk about games.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
You haven't done a dump in a couple of weeks, so you're probably backed up. But yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, you could react to the Game Awards, but who really cares?
Yeah, and the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame will be open to the public.
Yeah, you can talk about the Hall of Fame.
I want to talk about everyone's Game of the Years, because like our Shack Chat will be up, I think.
Yeah.
Talk about Game of the Years, talk about the Hall of Fame games. Like, I think just run through that list a little, like maybe. And
I don't think I can make it. Up. I think I'm going to be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns on Saturday, because Case Keenum tested positive too.
You're going to get COVID. Don't do it.
You're about to become the Scott Bakula of the Cleveland Browns.
Wait, you mean like in Necessary Roughness?
Exactly, only it's not college football. It's like Necessary Roughness too. Like, because it's like you're going into the pros, right?
I mean, I'm tall. I'm taller than Baker Mayfield.
Then you should be able to throw the ball over a lineman.
I could probably throw. I don't know. There's not even any wide receivers. Jarvis is out. Donovan, I don't know who we're throwing to. Anyway,
you know what else?
I might be busy tomorrow. I think the Browns need me.
Fair enough.
I saw Tim Couch tweeted that he's available too.
Good. Are they playing in Vegas?
No.
Oh snap! Then they definitely need you.
No one should come up here, man. This is Northeast Ohio. Even though it's home of the Shacknews Hall of Fame, Yeah, you should visit the Shacknews Hall of Fame someday. But Canton, Ohio right now is in a bad state. Northeast Ohio is in a really rough shape. And yeah, we're not... It sucks having this cloud of COVID over everything that we do. But it's there, and I don't have the cognitive dissonance in me to ignore what's happening in the world right now. So, yeah, if you're out there and you're struggling either just from losing your job or health issues or whatever, yeah, I hope that we brought you some joy this year with what we've done here at Shack News. I hope the Game of the Year content will also do that for you. We're going to start running that next week while we're on break. And yeah, shout out to everyone at the staff for working their butts off this year. Thanks to everyone who watches our channel here on Twitch, our YouTube channels, GamerHub TV, and Shack News Games. And yeah, thanks to our community members. Thanks to everyone who supports us with Shack News Mercury, the subs here on Twitch, all those generous donors who donated to charity this week. It's not... Yep. Okay.
All right. What else? You know what else is going down tomorrow, Asif? That I wanted to mention.
What's happening tomorrow?
It's my 4-year anniversary with Shack News.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I've been here for 4 years now. Holy cow! Has time flown in such odd ways during this? But man, it's been awesome. I've been here for 40 years now. That's right. 4 years and running, and it's a pleasure to work with all of y'all and get to do cool stuff like this. So, thanks for keeping me around.
Yeah, well, it's been a hell of a run.
Yeah. Also, we'll pass on your gratitude to Lola when she deigns
Lola
to hear it.
Is really over it, honestly.
She's over it before we began these deliberations.
She like comes in this room and like doesn't even walk all the way over here. Like looks at me and is like, "You're still on your chair? Like, what are you doing?" Normally around 4 p.m., it's like hanging out on the couch or we're walking around doing something or we're playing. She's like, "You've been sitting there." And then she saw me last night up till 5 a.m. writing, and she's like, "What are you doing, dude?" So yeah, Lola is just she's a princess. There's no other way to describe her. I think for her year was over after the direct aired. She was like,
vacation time.
Yeah. We were on a Guilty Gear Accolades trailer. There is not a certain range of years that you're eligible. You just have to have been active in the video game industry at least 25 years ago. That's it. And yeah, that means that next year, when we do this again, we will be honoring games that came out in 1997. And, other games that may have missed the list this year.
Yeah.
So I hope people read it. I hope you share your opinions on some of these inductees. If we feel we missed someone, I'm sure people will jump in there and join the conversation. I'm sure they'll call us idiots, because it's the internet.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
Everyone gets an opinion. Just not great sometimes. But man, oh man. Thank you, everyone that donated too. Thank you so much. It really means the world to us that you would donate your money to our fundraiser and that you tuned in. And we hope you enjoyed it. Should we get going here, fellas, or do you have anything else you wanted to say, Asif? You're good. Don't. All right.
I think I'm good. Thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you to the Shack staff who helped us stream this week. Thank you, Blake, for running this 8 hours a day straight from your apartment. Thank you to the Council of the Old, the folks that aren't here right now. Ozzy Mejia, Greg Burke, Bill Lavoie, David Craddock, and Blake and myself.
I would stand up and bow, but I'm afraid my back would go out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll just stay seated for now.
Yeah. I gotta stand up soon because my legs are starting to.
I super want to stand up. I also 2 days in a row I've needed to run to a specific grocery store that closes at 9 p.m. and I've been unable to. So I'm really hopeful that I can do that now.
Oh, get the hell out of here!
Yeah,
let's get going. Wave goodbye to everybody.
But at the same time, I haven't eaten since like 11. So I kind of want to eat food, but then I wouldn't be able to go to the grocery store. Also, going to the grocery store when you're hungry is a terrible idea.
Going to the grocery store, any grocery store in Northeast Ohio right now is a coin toss. But
it is. It's also it's a death trap of COVID awaiting me outside. So I may just stay. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thank you. Just thank you, and thank you to anyone who's using Shack Pets out there. I would highly.
And thank you to you too, Asif.
Hey. I guess.
No, come on, man. Get real. Get real.
No, it's. I don't
like. I know, and you don't want to talk about too much, but I know what you've been going through the last year or so, man, and like, you're doing. What you're doing is awesome, and the fact that like you're here with us today is.
It's
shows
rare
how
for
much
me.
You care.
It's rare for me to be involved in streams these days, because I don't really have the endurance for it anymore.
Because we're on the Council of the Olds, I get it. I totally feel it. I am very tired right now.
I don't have the endurance. It's really a young man, young woman's, young person's game. But yeah, I do enjoy. I enjoy celebrating video games, and I think basically everything we do at Shack News builds up to the coverage that we're about to roll out. And obviously, with the everything we're doing behind the scenes with Shack Pets, but. Yeah, this Hall of Fame was a great idea, and our company is uniquely fit to do this because we're just weird enough to want to do this. We have a reverence for our history here in the community and also on our staff. That just I think it's unparalleled. I think, and I'm not throwing shade at any other competitors, but like there's other places that are out there that don't have people that stick around as long as us, and our community has stuck around, and some of our staff have come and gone. David, you've had different roles over time. You left, you came back. We have Shackers on staff. I was a Shacker at one point. I bought the website.
4 years is the longest I have stuck around for any job, Asif. Like at all.
Yeah.
Period.
This is 7 years for me is the second longest. I'm still CFO of another company, but and CEO of another. Yeah, this is I guess my third longest tenured job then. But then again, I stepped down as CEO earlier this year, so that's Lola's gig now. I'm just her assistant. She's done a great job. Actually, all credit goes to Lola. All 4,700 Shack Pets wins. But yeah, it's been great. Hanging out this week with the staff, but yeah, I look forward to kind of receding back into the shadows where I work on my ridiculous pet app.
And there's more coming from Shack Pets in the next year too. I can't wait to see what's
lots of updates are coming. I think there's an update that will hit the App Store and Google Play either today or tomorrow, and we're thrilled to see how many people are using the app and how people are interested in it and how it's surprised and delighted some people. So, we're going to keep working on it. It's definitely, it's gone beyond a pet project to something much bigger. And, Pet project. You got it. But yeah, it's, this, despite all the challenges that we've faced this year, I thought we had a good year. I think this is a great way to end it. And I hope we inspired people out there to like, if you have a crazy idea, just try it. And I think a lot of the people we honored today had crazy ideas and they tried it and it worked. And when it does, it feels really good. Yeah. I hope at the very least you can take some inspiration from the funds we've raised or the things that we've honored today and take that into your own life and do something positive with it.
Well said.
There we go, man. Well, that's the perfect place to end, I think. Thank you all again for tuning in. Thanks to the staff. And thank you to everyone who donated. 11 tomorrow morning, I think, what is that, Eastern time or Pacific time? That's Pacific time. You're gonna
That's
be able to
be
catch
Pacific.
Pop Goes the Culture. Then we're
the
gonna
last
have
one of the season.
the last dump of the year. So I hope you're ready to let it all.
Is that
loose.
going to be at 1:30 Eastern?
Yeah,
or sorry, Pacific.
1:30 Pacific.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be kind of just talking about some of the games we loved this year, more so than anything else, because I can't really think of too much else.
You could talk about all the NFT nonsense that was announced this week.
Oh man, I feel like it talks about itself enough. But we'll see what comes up. I've still got time to
What if you did like a story of the year?
Story of the year, man, that's going to be tough. I think maybe stories of the year might be cool because I feel like there's a few worth noting that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, it might be cool to kind of go through some of the bigger stories and things we remember, and then talk about some of the games that came out this year that we loved. I'm trying to keep it a little cash. It's like we're about to it's vacation starts tomorrow. We're gonna do the dump, have a little bit of fun with it, and then call it a day. I think that's the way to go. But,
awesome. So tune in tomorrow, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, all the way into the evening. There's some great stuff that's coming your way.
And keep on doing it for Shack News. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.